Deep beneath the endless forests and frozen steppes of Russia, echoes of a forgotten past linger, whispers of civilizations, legends, and secrets that time itself has tried to bury. Towering fortresses stand in ruins, their walls scarred by centuries, hiding stories that scholars and explorers can only begin to imagine. Ancient artifacts emerge from the soil, etched with symbols that defy interpretation, pointing to cultures that may have flourished long before history recorded their names. What caused these civilizations to rise and then vanish without a trace? Were they lost to war, natural cataclysms, or something far stranger beyond our understanding? Hidden monasteries, mysterious underground complexes, and enigmatic stone circles hint at knowledge and power that challenges the very fabric of what we think we know about human history. In this journey, we'll traverse frost-bitten landscapes, peer into the shadowy corners of forgotten cities, and uncover the enigmatic relics that continue to baffle researchers today. So sit back, relax, and let's dive into the untold mysteries of ancient Russia, where every discovery seems to ask more questions than it answers. In the heart of Moscow, where the ancient towers of the Kremlin pierce the sky and the Moskva River winds like a silver ribbon through the city, a shadow of history lingers, one that has tantalized scholars and treasure hunters for centuries. Hidden somewhere amid the labyrinthine corridors of the old citadel, or perhaps buried beneath layers of forgotten soil, lies the enigmatic lost library of Ivan the Terrible. The very idea of it evokes both awe and unease, a collection said to contain thousands of manuscripts, chronicles, maps, and arcane texts from across the known world, some thought to date back centuries before Christ, others rumored to contain knowledge that borders on the forbidden. Ivan IV, the first crowned Tsar of Russia, ruled with a mixture of brilliance and terror. He was a man of contradictions, a devout believer in the Orthodox faith, yet fascinated by occult practices, a meticulous administrator of his empire, yet prone to bouts of paranoia that left entire families in fear. His ambition was not only for political dominion, but for mastery over knowledge itself. Records suggest that he personally acquired texts from Constantinople, the courts of Europe, and distant lands beyond the Caspian. Some accounts speak of rare scrolls in languages no living scholar could decipher, books bound in materials that have since disintegrated, and codices filled with diagrams of celestial movements, alchemy, and mystical rituals. Yet, by the time of Ivan's death in 1584, this library vanished. The circumstances surrounding its disappearance are as obscure as the collection itself. Some historians argue that it was systematically destroyed during the upheavals following his death, burned in secret to prevent dangerous knowledge from falling into the wrong hands. Others propose that it was hidden deliberately, concealed within the thick walls of the Kremlin, or secreted away to a remote monastery in the Ural Mountains. Over the centuries, whispered rumors have suggested that treasure hunters, monks, and even foreign spies searched for it, leaving behind tantalizing clues, yet never uncovering the full trove. Physical evidence of the library is sparse. Some surviving records from the late 16th century mention the careful cataloging of hundreds of manuscripts and maps, but these notes disappear abruptly in subsequent archives. References in diplomatic correspondence hint at gifts of rare manuscripts sent by Ivan to foreign courts, yet the majority of the library is unaccounted for. Could it have been lost to fire, political intrigue, or simple neglect? Or does it lie untouched beneath layers of stone and soil, waiting for discovery? Adding to the intrigue is the nature of the texts themselves. Many are said to have contained knowledge that, even by the standards of their time, was extraordinary. Astronomical charts, medical treatises, and philosophical works mingled with writings that modern historians struggle to verify. There are mentions of codices containing the wisdom of forgotten civilizations, some allegedly chronicling events in distant lands such as ancient Egypt, Babylon, and even the fabled lands described in early Persian and Greek accounts. Could these texts have held insights into technologies or scientific concepts lost to history? Were there manuscripts detailing esoteric knowledge, rituals, or philosophies that challenged conventional understandings of human thought? The story becomes even murkier when considering the accounts of travelers and chroniclers. In the early 17th century, a few foreign envoys wrote of vast collections of books in the Kremlin, many in languages they could not read. Some mentioned locked rooms, secret passageways, and guardians entrusted with the preservation of the texts. But as time passed, the trail went cold. By the 18th century, references to the library were largely anecdotal, colored by folklore and speculation. Tales circulated of manuscripts so powerful that they could change the course of kingdoms or reveal the hidden laws of the universe, but tangible proof was absent. Speculative theories abound. Some researchers suggest that Ivan's obsession with the occult and the esoteric might have guided the curation of the library toward mystical or forbidden texts. Perhaps the Tsar sought manuscripts that predated recorded history, containing lost wisdom from civilizations of the ancient world. Others hypothesize that portions of the library were secretly transported to monasteries or hidden in natural caverns in the Ural or Caucasus regions, where the rugged terrain offered natural protection. More fringe ideas even posit that some texts could have been taken abroad, ending up in private collections in Europe, later concealed by those aware of their significance. Even the supposed destruction of the library raises questions. Fires in Moscow were frequent, and the 1571 raid by the Crimean Tatars burned much of the city, including parts of the Kremlin. Could Ivan's library have survived these events, hidden in a secret vault, or was it irrevocably lost in the flames? Scholars also note that the Tsar's known paranoia might have prompted him to create multiple copies of his most precious texts, potentially scattering them far beyond Moscow. If so, fragments may exist in places yet undiscovered, waiting for a careful eye to recognize their origin. The allure of the lost library is not only in the texts themselves, but in what they represent. The human desire to preserve knowledge against the ravages of time, ambition, and history's chaos. Each reference, each rumor, each fragment sparks questions rather than answers. What truths did Ivan believe these texts contained? How much of human history might they illuminate or obscure? And even today, centuries later, the shadow of the library casts a quiet, persistent mystery over Russia's past. As we explore this enigma, wandering through the streets of Moscow, tracing the paths of long-dead czars, and peering into the accounts of those who glimpsed the library's treasures, one is left with a sense of awe and uncertainty. The lost library of Ivan the Terrible endures in our imagination as much as in history, a testament to ambition, secrecy, and the enduring human fascination with the unknown. And though we may never hold the texts in our hands, the questions they inspire remain as vivid and compelling as ever. What knowledge was truly hidden within those walls, and might it still be waiting somewhere for discovery? As the cold winds sweep across the tundra of Russia's far north, the landscape appears at once barren and otherworldly. Endless expanses of snow and ice stretch toward the horizon, broken only by jagged cliffs, frozen rivers, and the shadowed outlines of ancient forests. Here, in this desolate yet strangely compelling terrain, some historians and explorers have traced whispers of a land lost to time, Hyperborea, a realm described in classical Greek accounts as a place of unparalleled beauty, endless light, and mysterious civilization. According to legend, it was a land far to the north, where the sun shone 24 hours a day during the summer, and the people lived in harmony with nature, their wisdom and longevity unparalleled. Classical sources, from Herodotus to Pindar, spoke of Hyperborea with both admiration and uncertainty. Yet, over centuries, the location of this fabled land faded from maps and memory, leaving only cryptic references and tantalizing fragments of description. In the Russian north, scholars have observed geological formations, ancient settlements, and artifacts that some believe may correspond to these accounts, though mainstream archaeology remains cautious. Could the stories of Hyperborea be rooted in actual settlements that predate known history? Or are they simply mythologies shaped by imagination and oral tradition? The harsh northern climate makes detailed investigation difficult. Permafrost conceals millennia of history beneath frozen soil, and many areas remain virtually inaccessible even today. Still, scattered evidence sparks curiosity. Certain stone structures, aligned with astronomical patterns, have been found in regions near the White Sea and the Arctic Circle. Some structures appear far older than conventional history would suggest, hinting at a civilization capable of complex engineering and sophisticated understanding of the natural world. Though fragmentary, these findings invite questions. Could these sites be remnants of a Hyperborean culture, or merely the coincidental handiwork of more recent populations? Legends also describe artifacts of extraordinary craftsmanship, with symbols and inscriptions that resist straightforward interpretation. Some are said to depict celestial cycles or maps of lands that no longer exist, hinting at knowledge of geography and astronomy that seems advanced for their time. While conventional explanations attribute these items to local tribes or cultural exchanges with neighboring regions, alternative perspectives suggest something far more ancient and enigmatic. Were these objects part of a broader Hyperborean legacy, disseminated across the northern territories before vanishing beneath ice and time? The Hyperborean mythos is further complicated by the writings of medieval chroniclers in Russia, who occasionally reference distant northern kingdoms inhabited by long-lived peoples with remarkable knowledge of healing, agriculture, and metalwork. While these accounts are often intertwined with folklore and religious symbolism, they echo patterns described in Greek texts, indicating that the story of Hyperborea might have been preserved across cultures, albeit in transformed forms. Could these fragmented accounts preserve a kernel of historical truth, obscured by centuries of storytelling and reinterpretation? Beyond the historical and archaeological dimensions, Hyperborea also occupies a space in the imagination, a meeting point of mystery and human curiosity. Ancient myths speak of the land as a place untouched by conflict, a sanctuary where knowledge, art, and science flourished. Some theories propose that Hyperborea may have served as a refuge for advanced northern cultures, displaced by climate change or natural disasters thousands of years ago. Others speculate that the Arctic Circle's unique environment, with its extreme light cycles and rich natural resources, could have supported a thriving, if isolated, population. Despite centuries of research, Hyperborea remains elusive. No definitive city ruins, libraries, or continuous artifacts have been confirmed to belong to such a civilization. Yet the traces, stone formations, inscriptions, and scattered oral histories suggest that northern Russia may have preserved fragments of a culture whose achievements we are only beginning to glimpse. Could Hyperborea have been a real society, lost to rising seas, shifting climates, or the relentless passage of time? Or does it exist only as an enduring idea, a symbolic reflection of humanity's longing for a perfect, hidden world? Some modern explorers and researchers have turned to technology for answers. Satellite imagery reveals geometric patterns in frozen landscapes. Ice cores preserve evidence of human activity, diet, and trade. And underwater surveys in northern rivers occasionally uncover artifacts buried beneath silt and permafrost. Each discovery brings more questions than answers. How much of Hyperborea's history lies dormant beneath ice and stone? Could remnants of its knowledge survive, waiting for those willing to search in the unforgiving north. Perhaps the true intrigue of Hyperborea lies not in finding a single location or unearthing a specific treasure, but in the sense of possibility it inspires. It challenges our understanding of human civilization, inviting us to consider what societies might have existed beyond recorded history, and what secrets the frozen north might still hold. The myths, the fragments, and the archaeological traces converge into a quiet but persistent question. What was Hyperborea, and what remnants of its legacy could still lie hidden, veiled by ice, forest, and time? As we journey further into the Russian north, tracing the outlines of lost civilizations and exploring the thin veil between history and myth, the shadow of Hyperborea stretches across centuries, silently inviting discovery. It is a mystery that endures, demanding patience, curiosity, and a willingness to look beyond conventional narratives. And so, as we continue our exploration, we are left to wonder, is Hyperborea merely a story told by the ancients, or a civilization lost in plain sight, waiting for those who seek to uncover its frozen secrets? Far to the east of Nizhny Novgorod, nestled within the dense forests of the Volga region, lies Lake Svetloyar, a body of water so still and reflective that it seems almost suspended in time. On clear mornings, a delicate mist rises from its surface, curling in silvery tendrils above the dark, glassy depths. Local legends claim that beneath these waters rests a city unlike any other, a place so magnificent it vanished from the mortal world itself. Kitezh, the Russian Atlantis. Travelers speak of hearing distant church bells echoing from beneath the lake, or glimpsing golden domes shimmering through the fog, yet when approached, the vision dissolves, leaving only the whispering waters behind. The earliest written references to Kitezh date back to the 13th and 14th centuries, chronicling a city that thrived during times of invasion and upheaval. According to legend, when the Mongol armies advanced into the Russian heartland, the devout citizens of Kitezh prayed for salvation. In response, the city was said to have disappeared beneath the waters of Lake Svetloyar, hidden from those who would desecrate it, yet preserved intact for the righteous. The story has been passed down for centuries, through chronicles, folk songs, and oral tradition, and it continues to captivate historians, folklorists, and curious travelers alike. Modern exploration of the lake offers both fascination and frustration. Archaeologists have documented unusual formations along the lakebed, including submerged stone structures and patterns that suggest organized construction rather than random natural formations. Divers occasionally report encountering anomalous shapes or depressions that hint at walls, streets, or foundations, though none have yet confirmed a definitive underwater city. Could these features be the remnants of Kitezh, or the products of natural geological processes misinterpreted over time? The legend itself has evolved with each retelling. Some versions emphasize the spiritual nature of the city, portraying it as a place visible only to those who are pure of heart or deeply faithful. Others hint at Kitezh as a center of extraordinary learning and culture, a repository of manuscripts, religious icons, and craftsmanship that rivaled the greatest cities of medieval Russia. Could the city's disappearance have been more than legend? Might it reflect a historical memory of flooding, abandonment, or deliberate concealment, preserved and magnified through generations of storytelling? Scientific observations offer both intrigue and mystery. Lake Svetloyar is unusually deep and exceptionally clear, with unique ecological conditions that could have preserved artifacts submerged for centuries. Some researchers suggest that seismic activity, shifts in water levels, or other natural forces may have contributed to the flooding of settlements along its shores, giving rise to the enduring tales of a sunken city. Yet even with modern sonar and diving equipment, conclusive evidence remains elusive. The lake's calm surface conceals the past beneath layers of silt, water, and time, challenging every attempt to fully understand what lies below. The myth of Kitezh has long inspired exploration, literature, and devotion. Writers, poets, and composers of the 19th and 20th centuries immortalized the city in song and story, presenting it as a symbol of resilience, faith, and hidden knowledge. Some speculate that Kitezh's allure may stem not only from the possibility of physical ruins, but from its conceptual power, a reminder of humanity's longing for sanctuaries untouched by conflict, where wisdom and virtue endure beyond the reach of time or conquerors. Could this vision, passed down through centuries, contain kernels of historical truth, or is it purely a reflection of cultural imagination? Fringe theories have also emerged, hinting at possibilities that straddle history and legend. Some propose that Kitezh may have served as a sacred repository for religious artifacts or rare manuscripts, similar to the elusive libraries of Ivan the Terrible. Others suggest that the city's sudden disappearance could reflect knowledge of early engineering techniques to protect or conceal entire settlements. While such ideas remain speculative, they underscore the enduring fascination with Kitezh, a city that seems to defy the boundaries between myth, memory, and archaeology. The interplay of faith, geography, and legend renders Lake Svetloyar a place of extraordinary mystery. On calm days, the mirrored waters seem to hold secrets just beneath the surface, as if the lake itself guards the city within. On windy afternoons, ripples distort the reflections of surrounding trees and sky, creating the impression of movement below, an almost imperceptible hint that something remains hidden, waiting to be revealed. Visitors often describe a sense of timelessness, a quiet awe, and the impression that the lake holds stories that can never be fully known. Even today, the question of Kitezh endures. Could a real city have existed here, submerged beneath Lake Svetloyar centuries ago? Might artifacts, inscriptions, or remnants of structures still linger under the water, silently preserving a chapter of history lost to memory? Or does the city exist only in the collective imagination, a spiritual and cultural mirror reflecting humanity's longing for preservation, justice, and the divine? As we trace the edges of Lake Svetloyar, peering into its depths and listening to the whispered tales of those who claim to have glimpsed Kitezh, one is struck by the delicate balance between fact and legend. The disappearing city lingers at the intersection of history, folklore, and the unknown, a place where curiosity meets patience, and where every unanswered question deepens the sense of wonder. And so, as we continue our exploration of ancient Russia's enduring mysteries, we are left with a quiet, persistent question. What truly lies beneath the waters of Lake Svetloyar, and which parts of Kitezh, if any, remain waiting to be discovered? Deep within the vast taiga of the Ural Mountains, where dense forests stretch endlessly and rivers carve silent paths through moss-covered rocks, an extraordinary relic lies preserved in the stillness of the earth. The Shigir Idol, a towering wooden figure almost 5 meters tall, was discovered in 1890, buried within a peat bog near the Shigir peat swamp. Its weathered surface, though worn by millennia, still bears intricate geometric patterns, enigmatic symbols, and anthropomorphic features that hint at a sophisticated understanding of art and storytelling. The figure rises like a sentinel from the past, both imposing and inscrutable, inviting those who gaze upon it to ponder a world long vanished. Carbon dating has revealed that the Shigir Idol is astonishingly ancient, originating around 9,500 years ago, making it arguably the oldest known wooden sculpture in the world. To put that into perspective, it predates the construction of the Great Pyramids in Egypt, and emerges from a period when human societies were predominantly hunter-gatherers in the forests of Eurasia. How and why a community of early post-glacial humans would create such a monumental and complex figure remains a profound question. What beliefs, rituals, or narratives did it serve? The carvings on the idol are unlike anything else known from the period. The repeated motifs of zigzags, lines, and faces suggest symbolic meaning, possibly related to cosmology, tribal identity, or mythological storytelling. Some researchers interpret the patterns as maps of sacred landscapes or depictions of spirits inhabiting the forest, while others propose they might represent numerical or calendrical systems. Yet after more than a century of study, there is no definitive explanation. Could these abstract symbols encode knowledge lost to time? Or are they expressions of early human creativity whose meaning we may never fully grasp? The context of the Shigir Idol's discovery adds further intrigue. Found in a peat bog, the waterlogged conditions preserved the wood for millennia, preventing decay that would have consumed it in a drier environment. This environment also hints at ritual significance. Bogs in prehistoric Europe were often sites of ceremonial deposition. Was the idol erected in a sacred clearing and later submerged in the peat as part of a ritual offering? Or did it fall into the swamp by accident, only to be preserved by the extraordinary chemistry of the bog? Beyond the physical evidence, the Shigir Idol challenges our understanding of early human society. A figure of such size, intricacy, and symbolic depth suggests a community capable of planning, collaboration, and artistic expression at a level previously unrecognized for this era. It forces us to reconsider assumptions about the cognitive and cultural sophistication of hunter-gatherer groups in post-glacial northern Eurasia. Could there have been a rich spiritual or mythological tradition, passed down orally, whose traces survive only in this monumental artifact? Speculative interpretations abound. Some fringe theories propose that the idol represents a form of proto-writing or an early symbolic language, predating known scripts by millennia. Others suggest it depicts mythic figures or deities worshipped by an ancient forest culture, a civilization that left almost no trace beyond this single enigmatic monument. While mainstream archaeology remains cautious, the idol's combination of age, scale, and symbolic complexity ensures that it continues to captivate imaginations, inspiring both scholarly investigation and speculative wonder. The Shigir Idol also resonates with broader patterns of prehistoric art. Similar figures, often smaller and less elaborate, appear across northern Eurasia, suggesting a widespread symbolic culture in the post-glacial landscape. Yet nothing matches the scale, preservation, and complexity of the Shigir Idol itself. Could it have been the centerpiece of a larger ceremonial site, now lost beneath peat, forest, or river sediments? Or was it a singular creation, intended to convey messages or power far beyond the immediate community that made it? Even the human features carved into the wood invite reflection. The faces, eyes, and abstract forms suggest an attempt to connect with forces beyond the visible world, perhaps as guardians, ancestral spirits, or embodiments of natural powers. The rhythm of the patterns and the repetition of forms evoke a language of symbols, deliberate and intentional, yet frustratingly opaque. As one studies the idol, the impression grows of a culture deeply attuned to its environment, capable of abstract thought, spiritual reflection, and artistic expression that challenges modern assumptions about prehistoric life. The Shigir Idol's preservation and study have illuminated new questions about the early inhabitants of Eurasia. How did these communities view their world? What myths, rituals, or beliefs motivated the creation of such a monumental work? And what else might remain hidden, buried beneath forests, peat bogs, or riverbanks, waiting to reveal more about these long-lost cultures? Every new examination, every technological scan or symbolic analysis uncovers more detail. Yet the core mystery endures. Who carved the Shigir Idol, and why? As we leave the peat bogs of the Ural Mountains behind and consider the Shigir Idol standing in its museum display, we are reminded of the thin veil that separates knowledge from the unknown. The figure, silent and resolute, is a bridge to a world we cannot fully imagine, a testament to human creativity, spirituality, and mystery. And though we may never interpret every symbol or uncover every secret of its origin, the Shigir Idol continues to provoke awe, inviting us to ask, what other wonders of early human ingenuity lie hidden in the forests and bogs of ancient Russia, waiting for discovery? In the steppe of the southern Ural region, where the horizon stretches in golden waves beneath vast skies, a circular settlement emerges from the earth with a quiet, almost otherworldly presence. Arkaim, often called Russia's Stonehenge, is more than just an archaeological site. It is a window into the minds and lives of a civilization that existed some 4,000 years ago. From above, the site forms concentric rings of walls and dwellings, meticulously aligned with the cardinal points, the rising and setting sun, and perhaps even the patterns of distant stars. Walking among the remnants of stone and earth, one can sense the deliberate intelligence and spiritual vision that guided its construction, echoing a sophistication unexpected in Bronze Age steppe communities. Discovered in 1987 during a survey in Chelyabinsk Oblast, Arkaim immediately drew international attention. Excavations revealed a fortified settlement, complete with houses, streets, and a complex network of circular walls that form 2 or more concentric rings. Radiocarbon dating places its construction around 2000 BC, a period when nomadic tribes roamed much of Eurasia, yet here, a stationary society had developed advanced urban planning. Scholars have noted the precision of its layout, streets radiating from central points, dwellings standardized in size, and evidence of water management systems. Could these features indicate a community not merely surviving, but thriving with knowledge of architecture, astronomy, and social organization that challenges previous assumptions about Bronze Age societies in the steppe? Beyond its practical structure, Arkaim holds symbolic and possibly ritual significance. The circular design, echoing patterns found in other ancient cultures, suggests a profound connection to cosmology. Some researchers propose that Arkaim served as an observatory, a sacred calendar, or a ceremonial center where the cycles of the sun, moon, and stars were meticulously tracked. Alignments correspond to solstices and equinoxes, hinting at a people deeply attuned to the rhythms of nature, whose knowledge of celestial movements guided agricultural, spiritual, and social life. Could the inhabitants have possessed an understanding of astronomy far beyond what we typically attribute to Bronze Age cultures? Material evidence further enhances the mystery. Excavations have uncovered pottery, tools, and remnants of dwellings, all demonstrating careful craftsmanship. Yet, unlike other contemporary sites, Arkaim appears deliberately planned with symbolic intent. Its concentric layout is reminiscent of ritual or ceremonial design, possibly representing the unity of earth and sky, life and death, or the physical and spiritual realms. Some theories even suggest that Arkaim may have been part of a network of fortified settlements across the steppe, forming a cultural or spiritual lattice that connected disparate communities over vast distances. Speculative interpretations abound. Fringe theories propose that Arkaim was not merely a settlement, but a kind of proto-religious complex, a place where ancient peoples could interact with cosmic forces or preserve sacred knowledge. Some have drawn parallels with megalithic sites in Western Europe, suggesting shared principles of geometry, astronomy, and ritual, though direct connections remain unproven. Could Arkaim be evidence of a sophisticated, interconnected Bronze Age culture with spiritual and scientific knowledge lost to history? Or is it an isolated phenomenon, a singular expression of human ingenuity born from the unique conditions of the southern Ural steppe? Even today, the site radiates an aura of mystery. Arkaim's preservation, due in part to the steppe's remote location and dry soil, allows visitors to walk along ancient streets, imagining the rhythm of daily life thousands of years ago. One can picture families gathering in circular homes, craftspeople shaping tools, and priests or elders observing the sky, marking celestial events that guided the community. Yet, so much remains unanswered. Why was Arkaim abandoned, seemingly without destruction or conflict? Where did its people go, and what cultural knowledge did they carry with them? The site invites as many questions as it answers, each layer of earth and stone hinting at a story only partially revealed. The spiritual and cultural resonance of Arkaim extends beyond archaeology. Local folklore and modern interpretations imbue the site with symbolism, portraying it as a place of power, enlightenment, or hidden wisdom. Some suggest that the settlement's design encodes knowledge of cosmic cycles, geometry, or natural law, while others propose it as a spiritual hub where ancient peoples aligned their lives with celestial patterns. Whether these interpretations reflect historical reality or modern imagination, they underscore the deep impact Arkaim continues to have on those who encounter it. As we study Arkaim, the site challenges our perceptions of early human societies. Its scale, planning, and celestial alignments suggest a people capable of complex thought, social organization, and ritualistic or spiritual sophistication. How did they acquire such knowledge, and why did it vanish? Was Arkaim a prototype of urban civilization in the Eurasian steppe, or an isolated experiment in human ingenuity? And could similar settlements lie undiscovered beneath the vast steppes, their secrets hidden beneath centuries of earth and grass? Walking among the concentric rings, tracing the patterns etched into stone and soil, one feels a connection across millennia, a quiet dialogue between past and present. Arkaim endures as both monument and mystery, a place where human curiosity meets the enduring enigma of our ancestors. And as we leave the southern Ural steppe behind, we are left to wonder, what other remarkable settlements, knowledge, and innovations of early human civilization remain hidden, waiting for discovery beneath the earth and the steppe winds of ancient Russia? Along the winding rivers of Eastern Europe, where the waters of the Dnieper, the Volkhov, and the Oka cut through dense forests and fertile plains, the origins of a people remain shrouded in both legend and debate. The Rus, whose name would become synonymous with the foundations of modern Russia, Ukraine, and Belarus, emerge in historical records during the 9th century AD, yet the question of who they truly were and where they came from remains a tantalizing enigma. Was their ancestry rooted in Scandinavia, the vast northern lands of the Varangians, or did they emerge organically from the Slavic tribes of Eastern Europe? The answer is not simple, and every discovery seems to raise more questions than it resolves. Medieval chronicles, such as the Primary Chronicle, recount the arrival of Varangians, often referred to as Rus, who came to establish order among the fragmented Slavic tribes. The legendary Rurik is said to have founded a ruling dynasty in Novgorod, from which the expansion of Kievan Ruses would follow. Yet historical records from the period are scarce and often contradictory. Archaeology provides fragments, remnants of fortified settlements, weapons, jewelry, and trade goods spanning vast distances, suggesting that these early communities were far more interconnected than once believed. Could the Ruses have been part of a larger network of traders, raiders, and settlers whose movements shaped the cultural and political landscape of Eastern Europe in ways we are only beginning to understand? The debate over the Rus origins touches upon both archaeology and linguistics. Some scholars point to similarities in burial practices, weapon designs, and jewelry between the early Rus and Scandinavian cultures, supporting the theory that they were Norsemen who traveled south along river networks. Others note the integration of local Slavic elements in material culture, governance, and language, indicating a synthesis rather than a simple transplant. Could it be that the Rus identity was a fusion, a convergence of northern and local traditions that created a new people entirely? Trade and cultural exchange appear central to this story. The rivers of Eastern Europe served as arteries connecting the Baltic Sea to the Black Sea, allowing for the movement of goods, ideas, and peoples. Archaeological discoveries along these routes reveal evidence of long-distance trade, coins from Byzantium, glass beads from the Middle East, and ivory carvings from distant northern lands. Each artifact hints at a civilization both local and cosmopolitan, rooted in its environment yet engaged with the wider world. Were the Ruses merely opportunistic settlers, or did they cultivate a sophisticated understanding of diplomacy, commerce, and strategy that enabled their rise to power? The mystery deepens when considering the linguistic record. The very name Rus appears in sources from Byzantium, the Islamic world, and the chronicles of Eastern Europe, yet its etymology is debated. Some suggest a Scandinavian origin, linked to words for rowing or river navigation. Others propose local Slavic roots. Perhaps the name itself represents a merging of identities, a symbol of a people who straddled cultures, climates, and continents. How did this identity solidify into the political and cultural entity known as Kievan Rus, and what elements of its origin have been obscured or transformed by time? Speculative theories extend the intrigue. Some suggest that the Rus were originally part of a network of seafaring traders and raiders who maintained connections with regions as far away as Scandinavia, the Caspian Sea, and even the British Isles. Others propose that their early settlements incorporated ancient sites of ritual or spiritual significance, borrowing from local traditions to legitimize leadership and create cohesion among diverse populations. Could the Rus have been innovators of statecraft as much as of warfare, blending myth, commerce, and politics in ways that left few traces beyond legend and fragmentary material culture? Modern archaeology continues to challenge previous assumptions. Excavations of early urban centers like Novgorod, Ladoga, and Kiev reveal stratified layers of habitation, showing both continuity and adaptation over centuries. Evidence of fortifications, workshops, and domestic structures indicates societies capable of organization, planning, and sustained economic activity. And yet, each discovery highlights the gaps. The Rus remain partly hidden behind layers of myth, oral tradition, and the fragmentary record of distant observers. Even the story of Rurik and his successors is complicated. Were they foreign conquerors imposing rule upon Slavic communities, or were they local leaders whose histories were later intertwined with Norse legends to create a narrative of legitimacy? How much of Kievan Rus's cultural identity was inherited from these early rulers, and how much arose organically from the blending of northern and local influences? These questions linger, unanswered, and perhaps unanswerable, inviting continued exploration and reflection. The allure of the Rus Origin Mystery lies not only in the search for historical certainty, but in the broader human fascination with identity, migration, and the interplay of culture and environment. Each river, forest, and settlement in Eastern Europe whispers hints of a past that shaped kingdoms, languages, and traditions. Every artifact, from a Norse sword to a Slavic ornament, evokes the complexity of a people whose legacy endures yet remains partially obscured. As we trace the rivers, explore the ancient settlements, and examine the threads connecting north and east, we are reminded that history is rarely straightforward. The Rus were at once travelers, settlers, traders, and rulers, a people whose origins defy easy categorization. And so, as we continue our journey through the mysteries of ancient Russia, we are left with a quiet, persistent question. Who were the Ruses truly, and what stories remain buried along the rivers, forests, and plains of their long-forgotten past? Deep within the frozen expanse of Siberia, where jagged mountains rise abruptly from endless tundra, and the winds carry a biting, relentless chill, lies a place both feared and enigmatic, the so-called Siberian Valley of Death. Officially known as the Tunguska region by many researchers, this remote stretch of wilderness has captured the imagination of explorers, scientists, and storytellers for over a century. Vast, uninhabited, and often shrouded in mist, the valley presents an austere and haunting beauty. Yet beneath its serene surface lies a history that has puzzled observers and left lingering questions that continue to defy explanation. The valley first entered global awareness in 1908, when an immense explosion flattened over 2,000 square kilometers of forest, leveling trees in radial patterns and leaving the land eerily scarred. Known today as the Tunguska event, the phenomenon has been subject to extensive scientific study, yet its cause remains debated. Many researchers point to a meteor or comet fragment entering the atmosphere and detonating above the ground. Yet even with this explanation, anomalies persist. The absence of an impact crater, the precise nature of the explosion, and the unusual patterns of tree damage have all fueled speculation. Could there have been other forces at work, natural or otherwise, that science has yet to fully grasp? Beyond the 1908 event, local legend imbues the valley with an aura of dread and mystery. Indigenous Evenki and Yakut populations have long spoken of strange lights in the sky, mysterious sounds echoing through the forests, and odd phenomena in rivers and lakes. Accounts describe sudden disorientation, eerie sensations, and a sense of the land itself being alive or reactive. Are these stories merely the poetic imagination of communities interpreting natural occurrences, or might they reflect real events, perhaps even phenomena outside conventional scientific understanding? Modern investigations have revealed further curiosities. Soil and ice samples from the region contain traces of unusual isotopes, magnetic anomalies, and chemical signatures that do not fit neatly into standard meteorological or geological patterns. Some researchers suggest the presence of rare atmospheric or geophysical conditions, while others hint at energy releases of unknown origin. Could the valley conceal natural processes still invisible to contemporary science, or remnants of events so rare and powerful that they have left the landscape forever altered? The Siberian Valley of Death is not only a site of scientific intrigue, but also a cultural and historical mystery. Explorers in the decades following the 1908 explosion reported peculiar artifacts, oddly shaped stones, and unexplained depressions in the soil. While mainstream scholars often attribute these to the disruption of the land by the blast or to natural erosion, some propose that they could indicate previous human activity, lost settlements, or even ritual sites long buried beneath ice and peat. Could the valley have been a place of significance long before the Tunguska event, its secrets layered with centuries of history yet hidden beneath the harsh terrain? Speculative theories abound. Fringe hypotheses suggest that the valley might have been affected by unknown natural energies, cosmic phenomena, or even interactions with extraterrestrial forces. While these ideas remain unverified, they underscore the enduring fascination the valley holds over imagination and inquiry. Could the Siberian wilderness, with its extreme isolation and unique geophysical conditions, preserve phenomena that challenge our current understanding of nature and history? The landscape itself adds to the sense of enigma. Vast forests of larch and pine grow in irregular patterns, interrupted by meandering rivers, swampy clearings, and rocky outcrops. The ground, perennially frozen in parts, preserves organic material unusually well, allowing glimpses into environmental changes over millennia. Researchers have documented tree rings that suggest rapid growth and sudden trauma coinciding with the 1908 explosion, as well as fossilized remains that reveal patterns of local ecology shifting in ways not yet fully understood. Could these natural records conceal traces of events far older than Tunguska, hinting at cycles of catastrophic phenomena across Siberia? The valley's isolation intensifies the mystery. Few people live nearby, and the region's vastness makes comprehensive exploration difficult. Helicopter surveys, drone footage, and satellite imaging reveal patterns in the forests that suggest powerful, singular events, yet the interpretation of these patterns remains open. Some trees are blown outward, while others are strangely twisted or bent, almost as if responding to an invisible force. Are these anomalies purely the result of a high-energy explosion, or might the land itself be recording phenomena we do not yet understand? Despite decades of research, the Siberian Valley of Death continues to captivate both scientists and the curious. Its blend of stark natural beauty, unexplained events, and local folklore creates a compelling tableau of mystery. How much of what occurred in the valley is a natural phenomenon, and how much has been obscured by time, terrain, or the limits of human understanding? Could other, as yet undiscovered, events lie beneath the permafrost, waiting to reveal their secrets to those who venture into this frozen wilderness? As we peer across the endless expanse of Siberian forests, along the rivers and hills scarred by past explosions, the Valley of Death reminds us of the fragile boundary between knowledge and the unknown. It is a place where history, nature, and legend converge, challenging our assumptions and inviting reflection. And so, as we continue to explore the mysteries of ancient Russia, one question lingers in the stillness of the tundra. What other forces, seen or unseen, shaped this land, and what secrets of the past remain buried beneath its frozen soil, waiting for discovery? High in the Altai Mountains of southern Siberia, where jagged peaks pierce the sky and glaciers spill into hidden valleys, a frozen world preserves secrets that have lain untouched for over 2,000 years. Here, amid permafrost and rugged terrain, lie the enigmatic Pazyryk Ice Mummies, remarkably intact human remains discovered in burial kurgans, encased in ice that has preserved not only flesh and bone, but also textiles, tools, and artifacts of astonishing detail. The air is thin, the winds bitter, and the landscape seems suspended in time, a natural crypt holding the echoes of a vanished culture. The first of these extraordinary burials were unearthed in the 1920s and 1940s by Soviet archaeologists, revealing mummies so well preserved that tattoos, clothing, and even traces of last meals survived the millennia. Radiocarbon dating places these individuals around the 5th century BC, part of the Pazyryk culture of the Scythian nomads, whose artistry, craftsmanship, and ritual practices astonished scholars. Yet the ice itself raises as many questions as the discoveries. How did these bodies remain frozen and intact for over 2,400 years? And what does their preservation tell us about the people who deliberately interred them in these high-altitude tombs? The Pazyryk mummies provide a rare and intimate glimpse into the lives of Iron Age nomads. Elaborate felt and leather clothing, finely woven textiles dyed with vivid colors, and intricately carved wooden artifacts suggest a society highly skilled in artistry, trade, and symbolic expression. Tattoos etched into the skin of some mummies depict animals in dynamic poses, stags, deer, and mythical beasts, implying beliefs, spiritual practices, or stories that have no written record. Were these designs merely decorative, or did they hold ritual or protective significance, connecting the living with the unseen world? The tombs themselves are equally fascinating. Often constructed with timber frameworks, carefully arranged stones, and layers of ice and earth, the burial mounds demonstrate meticulous planning and a profound understanding of the natural environment. Some tombs are aligned with the cardinal directions, echoing patterns found in other ancient cultures, while others contain horses and artifacts positioned in ways suggesting ritual significance. Were these elaborate burials meant to honor social status, ensure safe passage to the afterlife, or preserve knowledge and legacy for the living? The answers remain tantalizingly out of reach. Scientific investigation has revealed more mysteries. Analysis of stomach contents, pollen grains, and residues found with the mummies indicates seasonal patterns, diets, and trade routes extending far beyond the Altai Mountains. Exotic dyes, imported textiles, and intricate ornaments point to a network of cultural exchange across the Eurasian steppe. Could these nomads have been not only warriors and herders, but also keepers of a sophisticated, interconnected civilization whose cultural memory survives only in frozen silence? Speculative interpretations add layers of intrigue. Some researchers suggest that the Pazyryk burials might reflect spiritual beliefs tied to the extreme environment of the high-altitude steppes. The ice that preserved the bodies could have been seen as sacred, a natural medium ensuring the dead remained in a liminal space between worlds. Others propose that the tattoos, symbols, and grave goods encoded cosmological or shamanic knowledge, a repository of wisdom hidden from the living, accessible only through ritual or initiation. Could the Pazyryk people have possessed insights into the natural world, the cycles of life and death, or even the heavens that remain undeciphered today? The human aspect of the mummies is striking. Faces, hair, and even fingernails survive, allowing scientists to reconstruct appearances, clothing, and even aspects of health and diet. One cannot help but imagine the lives of these individuals. Nomads traveling across the steppe on horseback, hunters attuned to the seasons and terrain, artisans and storytellers preserving culture through symbols and craft. And yet, despite the extraordinary preservation, their voices remain silent, leaving only questions about social structure, belief systems, and the events that led to their untimely deaths. Even the environmental context deepens the mystery. The Altai Mountains are prone to sudden climatic shifts, avalanches, and extreme winters. How much of the preservation of the Pazyryk mummies was deliberate, and how much was the fortunate alignment of natural conditions? Could other burial sites, still frozen in remote valleys, await discovery, holding further evidence of a culture whose complexity rivals the great civilizations of the ancient world, yet remains almost entirely hidden from history? The Pazyryk Ice Mummies invite reflection on time, memory, and the impermanence of human life. They connect us across millennia, offering tangible evidence of people who navigated the harshness of the Siberian steppe with skill, belief, and artistry. At the same time, they leave an undeniable sense of wonder and uncertainty. What did these tattoos signify? What rituals accompanied the burials? And what stories, knowledge, or wisdom were lost beneath the ice, inaccessible to the living? As we trace the glaciers, examine the burial mounds, and study the intricate artifacts, the Pazyryk mummies remind us that history is not always visible at first glance. Some civilizations are revealed not in written chronicles, but in frozen moments, preserved by circumstance and time. And so, as we continue our journey through the mysteries of ancient Russia, one question persists in the silence of the Altai peaks. What other secrets of life, death, and culture lie frozen in the mountains, waiting to whisper their stories across the ages? In the dim light of the scholar's study, among shelves heavy with ancient texts and manuscripts, one object stands apart in both mystery and controversy: the Veles Book. Unlike grand monuments or frozen tombs, it is a fragmentary text carved onto wooden planks, claiming to recount the history of the Slavic peoples from antiquity. The planks themselves are unremarkable in appearance, their surfaces worn by time, yet the words etched upon them hint at a lost world, legends, genealogies, and chronicles of kings and priests, of wars fought and alliances forged. To hold the Veles Book, even in reproduction, is to touch the shadow of a culture long vanished, and to encounter questions that continue to confound historians and linguists alike. The book first came to public attention in the early 20th century, reportedly discovered by a retired Russian officer named Yuri Mirolyubov in the forests of Kursk. According to accounts, the wooden planks were hidden, perhaps deliberately, for centuries, preserving knowledge that had been suppressed or nearly forgotten. The text presents a sweeping narrative. The migration of Slavic tribes, the rise and fall of kings, interactions with neighboring peoples, and even mythic cosmology. Yet from the outset, its authenticity has been the subject of intense debate. Scholars note inconsistencies in language, anachronisms, and questions of provenance, leaving the work suspended between historical artifact and enigmatic forgery. Despite controversy, the content of the Veles Book continues to captivate. The text refers to rulers and clans whose names resonate faintly in other historical sources, yet the chronology often diverges dramatically from established timelines. Some passages describe the Slavs' encounters with the Scythians, Sarmatians, and early Rus, hinting at a culture deeply aware of trade, migration, and diplomacy. Other sections read like mythic lore, depicting heroes, spirits, and sacred rituals that illuminate a spiritual framework otherwise lost to time. Could the Veles Book represent fragments of a genuine oral tradition, preserved in an unusual medium that offers insight into a pre-Christian worldview? Or does it reflect a later attempt to reconstruct or romanticize an imagined past? The physical medium of the book adds another layer of intrigue. Carved onto oak planks, the writing has endured despite the natural decay that consumes wood over decades. Proponents argue that this may indicate exceptional preservation methods, or even a deliberate choice to encode history in a durable, sacred form. Some researchers have suggested that the text preserves not only historical records, but also spiritual or cosmological knowledge, mapping genealogies and sacred events in ways that hint at lost systems of belief. Could the method of preservation itself be part of the message, a symbol of continuity between generations, or a protective measure against cultural erasure? The Veles Book also evokes questions about literacy, transmission, and secrecy in early Slavic society. If genuine, it implies a level of intellectual organization and written tradition that is otherwise sparsely documented in the archaeological and historical record. Could certain communities have maintained esoteric knowledge, hidden from outsiders and only revealed through carefully preserved manuscripts? And if so, what other texts or artifacts might remain concealed, awaiting discovery in forgotten forests, monasteries, or buried archives? Speculative interpretations further deepen the mystery. Some propose that the book encodes not only historical fact, but also symbolic or mystical knowledge, linking human events with cosmological cycles, sacred landscapes, and spiritual practices. Others suggest it may have been a form of coded historiography, intended to preserve sensitive cultural information across generations while avoiding destruction by conquerors or hostile forces. The ambiguity of the text ensures that every reading invites new questions. Which elements reflect authentic memory, and which might have been interpolated or reshaped over time? Despite skepticism, the Veles Book continues to influence modern perceptions of Slavic history. Scholars, folklorists, and enthusiasts alike have debated its contents, drawing parallels with other legendary sources, such as the primary chronicle, local oral traditions, and comparative Indo-European mythologies. Whether viewed as a historical document, a cultural relic, or a philosophical enigma, the text occupies a unique space at the intersection of history, legend, and scholarship, challenging our understanding of what can be known and what must remain mysterious. Even today, the plank's whereabouts are uncertain, and much of the debate relies on copies, photographs, and transcriptions made before parts of the text disappeared or were destroyed. This physical elusiveness mirrors the intellectual ambiguity of the work itself. It exists, yet resists full comprehension, leaving scholars to navigate a labyrinth of linguistic puzzles, historical inconsistencies, and tantalizing suggestions of lost knowledge. Could it be that some aspects of early Slavic history, spirituality, and culture are destined to remain forever partially hidden, revealed only through fragments, rumor, and careful interpretation? As we reflect on the Veles Book, its allure lies in the interplay between certainty and mystery. The text embodies the tension between the known and the unknown, between tangible evidence and the imagination's reach. Holding even a fragment of its words, one cannot escape the sense of encountering a shadow of the past, a trace of human thought and memory that transcends time. It prompts reflection on how civilizations remember themselves, how stories survive, and how knowledge can be both preserved and lost. And so, as we continue our journey through the enigmas of ancient Russia, the Veles Book reminds us that history is not merely a collection of dates and artifacts. It is a living dialogue between past and present. It is a testament to the mysteries that endure, to the stories that challenge our understanding, and to the questions that remain unanswered. What truths, hidden knowledge, or forgotten histories might the Veles Book preserve, waiting for the patient and curious to uncover them, long after the wood has weathered and the words fade into shadow? Along the gentle bends of the Zbruch River, where the waters shimmer beneath the dense forests of western Ukraine and the horizon stretches in quiet expanses of meadow and marsh, a solitary figure emerges from the past, a stone idol carved with intricate care, weathered by centuries yet retaining a presence that is both commanding and enigmatic. This is the Zbruch Idol, a four-sided statue standing over 2 meters tall, discovered in 1848, buried near the riverbank, hidden in mud and silt, waiting silently to reveal its secrets. Its surface is rough with age, but the carvings etched into the limestone speak of a culture attempting to encode complex ideas into stone, blending spirituality, society, and the human imagination. The idol is divided into distinct tiers, each presenting figures in relief: deities, warriors, and symbolic animals, seemingly arranged in a hierarchy that suggests cosmic or spiritual significance. At the top sits a deity, serene yet imposing, gazing outward, while the lower tiers depict human and animal forms in motion, engaged in activities or ritual gestures whose meanings remain largely obscure. Scholars have interpreted the arrangement as representing the triad of Slavic cosmology, the realms of heaven, earth, and the underworld, yet certainty remains elusive. Could the Zbruch Idol have been a ceremonial object, a shrine for worship, or even a visual map of the universe as conceived by ancient Slavic peoples? Historical analysis situates the idol within the 9th or 10th century AD, a period of dynamic cultural and religious change in Eastern Europe. The Slavs of this era were on the cusp of encountering Christianity, yet still retained rich pagan traditions. The Zbruch Idol, with its stylized figures and symbolic carvings, offers a rare glimpse into those beliefs, hinting at an intricate pantheon and ritual practice now largely erased from written records. But its origin story is partly shrouded in mystery. How did such a monumental sculpture come to be buried in the river mud? Was it intentionally submerged as an act of concealment, destruction, or ritual deposition? The answers remain tantalizingly out of reach. Archaeologists have noted the craftsmanship of the statue, the deliberate symmetry, the proportionality of figures, and the subtle gestures that seem to convey meaning beyond mere representation. The top-tier deity, sometimes identified as a supreme god, gazes outward with a calm authority, while the lower figures suggest motion, life, and perhaps even the cycles of nature or human society. Some theorists propose that the idol functioned as both a religious object and a societal record, encoding myths, lineage, and moral codes into a single visual narrative. Could such carvings serve as a mnemonic device for oral traditions, preserving knowledge in a form resistant to time and upheaval? Speculative interpretations have added to the idol's allure. Some researchers propose that it reflects a sophisticated cosmology, linking human experience with celestial and terrestrial forces, while others suggest that the animal motifs, birds, horses, and predatory creatures, symbolize spiritual intermediaries, guiding souls or representing elements of the natural world. Could the Zbruch Idol, in its silent complexity, have been a tool for spiritual teaching, a talisman of cultural continuity, or even a focal point for seasonal or astronomical rituals? The lack of contemporaneous written records leaves these questions largely unanswered, amplifying the statue's aura of mystery. The idol's discovery also raises questions about cultural transmission and survival. Found by peasants digging in the riverbank, its placement in mud and water has preserved it in remarkable condition, yet obscured its context. Was this concealment intentional, perhaps to protect sacred objects during times of social or religious upheaval? Or was it the result of natural processes, a chance burial that inadvertently shielded the statue from destruction and weathering? Each hypothesis presents both possibilities and uncertainties, reminding us how much is lost in the silence of the past. Beyond the scholarly debate, the Zbruch Idol continues to inspire imagination and cultural reflection. It embodies the intersection of human creativity, belief, and memory, standing as a testament to the Slavic people who carved it, worshipped it, and may have intentionally hidden it. Even today, as researchers examine every detail, from the curvature of limbs to the positioning of symbols, they confront the limits of interpretation. Can a single artifact encapsulate an entire worldview, or does it instead offer fragmented glimpses, leaving us to infer meaning from shadows and patterns? The enduring fascination with the Zbruch Idol lies not only in what it depicts, but also in what it conceals. Each tear, each gesture, each carved figure invites questions about spirituality, governance, and social life in early Slavic society. Was the idol meant to communicate with the living, the dead, or the gods themselves? Could it have been a marker of sacred territory, a ceremonial centerpiece, or even a symbol of political authority encoded in religious imagery? The ambiguity of its purpose mirrors the larger mystery of cultural memory, the ways civilizations preserve and transmit knowledge, and the gaps that time inevitably imposes. Standing before the Zbruch Idol today, one is struck by its quiet authority, the interplay of symmetry, symbolism, and mystery frozen in stone. It connects us to a people whose voices have largely vanished, yet whose thoughts, beliefs, and artistry endure in tangible form. And as we continue our journey through the enigmas of ancient Russia, the statue challenges us to reflect on the passage of time, the persistence of human creativity, and the enduring question: what deeper truths, spiritual knowledge, or cultural stories might the Zbruch Idol still guard, waiting for those patient enough to decipher its silent language? Deep within the dense forests and rolling hills of early medieval Eastern Europe, where rivers wind silently through ancient woodlands and the air carries a hint of pine and mist, there once stood temples dedicated to two of the most venerated deities of the Slavic pantheon: Perun, god of thunder and war, and Veles, god of the underworld, cattle, and commerce. Unlike the stone idols and frozen tombs that have survived the passage of time, these temples were often constructed from timber, earth, and natural materials, leaving little trace for modern eyes. Yet the echoes of their presence remain, etched into chronicles, folklore, and the very landscape itself. The temples of Perun were often situated on elevated ground, overlooking settlements or strategic crossroads, their placement suggesting both reverence and vigilance. Some accounts describe tall wooden poles, carved with symbolic motifs and crowned with figures representing the god, while fires burned continually in open courtyards, illuminating rituals that called upon thunder, rain, and protection. Meanwhile, temples dedicated to Veles were frequently found near rivers, forests, or caves, spaces associated with the liminal, the hidden, and the mysterious. Did the juxtaposition of Perun's sky-reaching temples and Veles's subterranean sanctuaries reflect an ancient understanding of duality, life and death, sky and earth, order and chaos, or something more profound, known only to the priests and worshippers of the time? Historical records, such as the primary chronicle and later Slavic accounts, hint at elaborate ceremonies, seasonal festivals, and offerings designed to honor and appease these gods. Perun, often invoked in times of war or communal decision-making, symbolized strength, justice, and celestial authority. Veles, in contrast, was associated with wealth, fertility, and the hidden forces that govern both life and death. The temples themselves, though largely lost to time, were sites of social as well as spiritual significance. Gatherings of community, negotiation of alliances, and the enactment of rituals meant to maintain harmony between human society and the forces of nature. Could these sacred spaces have served not only as houses of worship, but also as repositories of cultural memory, encoding the ethics, cosmology, and history of a people through architecture, symbolism, and ritual? Archaeological evidence provides tantalizing glimpses into these ancient sites. Excavations of former temple grounds have uncovered post holes arranged in circles or rectangles, traces of hearths, burnt offerings, and fragments of carved wood or pottery. While the organic materials have often decayed over centuries, the spatial patterns suggest intentional design, orientation, and symbolism. Some researchers have proposed that the layout of these temples aligned with celestial events, marking solstices, equinoxes, or planetary movements. Could the Slavs, like other ancient civilizations, have embedded astronomical knowledge into their sacred architecture, blending observation with myth to create spaces that were both practical and transcendent? The symbolism associated with Perun and Veles adds another layer of depth. Thunderbolts, oak leaves, and sacred animals were linked to Perun, while serpents, bulls, and flowing waters symbolized Veles. Temples may have displayed these motifs on poles, walls, or ritual objects, encoding stories of creation, morality, and the cycles of life into the environment itself. Some scholars suggest that rituals performed at these temples involved ecstatic states, music, and trance, allowing worshippers to commune with divine forces and gain insight into the unseen world. Could these practices represent a sophisticated spiritual psychology, a form of experiential knowledge lost to written history? Speculative interpretations further heighten the intrigue. Some researchers propose that the duality of Perun and Veles, the sky and the underworld, light and dark, law and cunning, reflects an early Slavic understanding of cosmic balance, encoded not only in myth, but also in the physical spaces of worship. Others suggest that the temples acted as centers for knowledge preservation, where oral history, sacred law, and practical guidance were transmitted to successive generations. Could these sacred sites have functioned as both spiritual and educational hubs, shaping the identity and cohesion of early Slavic communities in ways that archaeology and chronicles can only hint at? The destruction and disappearance of these temples also speak to a larger historical narrative. With the spread of Christianity into Eastern Europe, many pagan sites were dismantled, repurposed, or deliberately obscured. Wooden structures decayed, rituals were suppressed, and the collective memory of these sacred spaces shifted into folklore and legend. Yet echoes remain. Toponyms, river names, and local legends often preserve traces of Perun and Veles, hinting at the locations of temples long vanished. Could modern exploration and interpretation uncover further remnants of these sacred spaces, offering insight into a spiritual landscape once integral to Slavic life? Standing today in forests, along riverbanks, or atop hillocks where these temples may have once existed, one is struck by the subtle interplay between absence and presence. The sites are silent, yet they whisper of devotion, societal cohesion, and a worldview deeply attuned to natural and cosmic forces. They remind us that even when physical traces vanish, the human impulse to honor, understand, and harmonize with the universe leaves enduring echoes in culture, myth, and landscape. As we reflect on the pagan temples of Perun and Veles, we confront the fragile balance between what is known and what remains elusive. These sacred sites, their rituals, and the beliefs they embodied invite us to consider the complexity of ancient spiritual life, the interplay between humans and their environment, and the ways knowledge and devotion were encoded in space, symbol, and practice. And so, as we continue our journey through the mysteries of ancient Russia, one question lingers in the quiet of these forests and river valleys. What truths, practices, and knowledge might still be hidden beneath the soil, the roots, and the mists of time, waiting for discovery and understanding? In the far reaches of Siberia, where the taiga stretches in endless green, punctuated by icy rivers and mist-shrouded mountains, a different kind of mystery persists, one rooted not in monuments or manuscripts, but in the human spirit. Here, among the reindeer herders and forest-dwelling communities, there have long existed tales of shamans with unusual eyes, pale, almost milky, sometimes described as luminous in dim light. They are called the white-eyed shamans, figures who straddle the boundary between the material and spiritual worlds, their presence evoking awe, fear, and profound respect. The landscape itself, vast and often silent, seems to mirror the enigmatic aura of these practitioners, where visibility is limited and perception stretches beyond the ordinary. Historical accounts and ethnographic studies document that Siberian shamanism has been practiced for thousands of years, adapting to the harsh climate and remote geography. Shamans acted as healers, intermediaries, and keepers of communal knowledge, conducting rituals to ensure good fortune, protection, and harmony with nature. The white-eyed phenomenon, rarely discussed outside folklore and oral tradition, has fascinated scholars and travelers alike. Were these unusual eyes a physical trait, a result of ritual practice, or a symbolic sign of spiritual insight? Could they represent an altered state of consciousness achieved through fasting, meditation, or other ceremonial methods? The white-eyed shamans were often said to enter trance-like states, communicating with spirits of the forest, river, and sky. In these altered states, they could predict weather patterns, interpret omens, or heal ailments thought to originate from spiritual imbalance. Observers described their gaze as penetrating, otherworldly, capable of seeing beyond the boundaries of ordinary perception. Anthropologists note that shamanistic practices frequently involve rhythmic drumming, chanting, and the use of hallucinogenic substances derived from local plants. Yet the legend of the white eyes adds a layer of mystery beyond conventional explanation. Were these eyes a byproduct of physiological change induced by trance, a hereditary trait, or an aspect of symbolic ritual meant to signify authority and spiritual power? The connection between the shamans and their environment is striking. Remote Siberian communities relied on intimate knowledge of the land, tracking animals, reading the winds, and understanding seasonal patterns. Shamans, acting as guides between the human and natural worlds, embodied this knowledge. Some ethnographers suggest that the white-eyed shamans might have served as living repositories of cultural memory, their unusual gaze symbolizing access to hidden truths, ancestral wisdom, or visions of unseen realms. Could this practice reflect a form of early scientific observation encoded in spiritual ritual, a way to interpret natural phenomena and survival knowledge in metaphorical or mystical terms? Legends tell of shamans whose eyes glowed with a pale light during rituals, capable of mesmerizing those present, invoking visions, or even influencing physical events such as sudden storms or the migration of animals. While modern science has yet to verify these accounts, neurological research suggests that sensory deprivation, intense focus, or trance can induce perceptual changes in humans. Could these descriptions, passed down through generations, be a cultural interpretation of altered states of consciousness? Or might they hint at phenomena that science has yet to fully comprehend? The white-eyed shamans also played a role in social cohesion and moral guidance. They mediated disputes, advised leaders, and performed rituals to maintain balance within the community. Their presence was often accompanied by ceremonial objects, drums, masks, talismans, and ritual costumes, each imbued with symbolism tied to the spiritual world. Some reports suggest that shamans with white eyes were particularly revered, chosen for their sensitivity to the unseen and their ability to act as bridges between worlds. Could these figures represent an archetype of human intuition and perception, one that transcends the purely physical, reaching into collective memory and cultural identity? Speculative interpretations expand further. Some theorists propose that the white-eyed shamans may have interacted with phenomena that remain unexplained today: auroras, unusual magnetic events, or other atmospheric anomalies interpreted through the lens of spirituality. Others suggest that the physical manifestation of white eyes could symbolize initiation, a rite of passage that confers both social authority and mystical perception. Whether metaphorical, physiological, or supernatural, the legend persists across generations, suggesting a practice deeply entwined with identity, survival, and understanding of the world in a region where the ordinary and extraordinary converge. Even now, in modern Siberia, isolated communities retain traces of shamanistic practice. Elders recount stories, rituals are performed in secret, and some continue to speak of individuals whose eyes seem to pierce into realms unseen. The white-eyed shamans endure in folklore, oral history, and in the imagination of those who seek to understand the boundaries of human perception. Their legacy challenges assumptions about consciousness, spirituality, and the ways cultures encode knowledge beyond written records. As we reflect on the white-eyed shamans of Siberia, we confront a mystery that is both human and environmental, spiritual and tangible. They are reminders that history is not only preserved in artifacts and texts, but also in practices, traditions, and the subtle ways humans interact with the world around them. And so, as we continue our exploration of ancient Russia's enigmas, one question lingers among the forests, rivers, and frozen valleys. What hidden knowledge, ancient wisdom, or unseen forces might these white-eyed guardians have accessed? And what secrets of the Siberian wilderness remain waiting for those willing to seek them? In the heart of the ancient city of Novgorod, where cobblestone streets wind past medieval churches and the soft hum of the Volkhov River carries echoes of centuries, one object stands as a testament to both human ingenuity and the enigmatic forces that seem to linger in history: the Great Bell of Novgorod. Towering and solemn, the bell was said to possess a resonance unlike any other, its deep, sonorous toll capable of reaching far across the city and beyond, stirring the air with a sound that seemed to vibrate not only through stone and wood, but through the very consciousness of those who heard it. To stand in its presence, even in historical imagination, is to feel the weight of both material craftsmanship and the intangible mysteries that have long surrounded it. Historical records suggest that the bell was cast in the 15th century, during a period when Novgorod was a center of commerce, culture, and political intrigue. Made from a carefully calibrated alloy of copper and tin, the bell represented the pinnacle of metallurgical skill, intended not only for religious ceremonies, but also as a civic signal, marking time, warnings, and communal gatherings. Yet even as scholars document its size, composition, and use, the bell has accrued layers of mystery. According to some accounts, its sound was capable of extraordinary phenomena: animals growing restless, waters responding in subtle ways, and even buildings trembling slightly with the force of its toll. Could these descriptions reflect acoustic science, or were they early interpretations of something more arcane, a resonance that bridged the material and spiritual worlds? The casting of such a bell was no small feat. Artisans of the time would have combined precise knowledge of metal alloys with ritual practices intended to imbue the bell with both structural integrity and symbolic power. Some chronicles note that sacred rites accompanied the process, invoking divine favor to ensure that the bell's voice would endure across generations. Was this ceremonial aspect purely spiritual, or could it have encoded practical wisdom about vibration, resonance, and the harmonics of large objects? And if so, did the people of Novgorod understand something about sound as both a physical and metaphysical force that modern science only partially explains? The bell's placement and usage further enhance its mystique. Hung in the central bell tower of the city, it dominated the skyline, visible from miles away. When it rang, the sound carried across the river and through the dense wooden and stone architecture of Novgorod, creating a shared auditory experience that bound the community together. Yet some observers report that certain tolls seemed to linger longer than physics would predict, vibrating in unusual ways, or producing overtones that eluded conventional explanation. Could this have been an acoustic anomaly? Or might it hint at an understanding of harmonic resonance that has since been lost? Speculation also surrounds the bell's symbolic and ritual significance. Bells in medieval Russia were often considered conduits between the earthly and spiritual realms, used to call upon protection, mark sacred moments, and even repel malevolent forces. The Great Bell of Novgorod, given its size and prominence, may have carried an amplified version of this spiritual role, its toll believed to influence the unseen world as much as the visible one. Some historians and folklorists suggest that the bell's sound was deliberately crafted to evoke awe, induce contemplation, or signal divine presence. Could it be that the artisans intended the bell as both a sonic instrument and a metaphysical tool, a bridge between the human and the sacred? Further layers of mystery emerge when considering the fate of the bell. Wars, invasions, and political upheaval in Novgorod's history placed such artifacts at risk, and yet accounts suggest that the bell survived centuries of tumult. Some stories describe efforts to silence it, attempts to remove it, and moments when its voice seemed to vanish mysteriously, only to return. Was this mere happenstance? Or did the bell's design possess qualities that allowed it to endure, in material and in memory, against forces that destroyed so much else? Even the physical vibrations of the bell inspire curiosity. Modern studies of large bells indicate that their harmonics can interact with the environment in subtle and unpredictable ways. Could the Great Bell of Novgorod have produced effects that ancient observers interpreted as supernatural? Was it a tool for civic cohesion, spiritual invocation, or perhaps both, engineered with skill and intuition that approached the boundaries of what we now understand about sound and resonance? The bell also invites a reflection on the human relationship with sensory experience and memory. To hear a sound that dominates a city, that lingers in mind and body, is to experience history itself in real time as an acoustic and emotional phenomenon. The Great Bell of Novgorod reminds us that artifacts are not merely objects of study, but vessels of perception, capable of shaping the consciousness of communities and individuals alike. Could it be that the bell's resonance, both literal and symbolic, preserved cultural knowledge, emotion, and ritual in ways no manuscript or monument could? Standing today, or imagining its towering presence in Novgorod's skyline, the bell evokes a tension between what is tangible and what remains unseen. Its metal form is subject to analysis, yet the phenomena it inspired, echoes, vibrations, and spiritual interpretations, resist complete understanding. And as we trace the mysteries of ancient Russia, the Great Bell of Novgorod serves as a reminder that history is not always silent. It speaks in sound, in ritual, in memory, and in the enduring questions that call upon us to listen carefully, to perceive beyond the ordinary, and to wonder what hidden forces, ancient wisdom, or unseen vibrations might still echo in the silence of Novgorod, waiting for those attuned to hear them. In the dense forests, open steppes, and river valleys of medieval Russia, a quiet and enigmatic force shaped the beliefs, politics, and destinies of communities: the Volkhvy. These were the seers, mystics, and ritual specialists of the Slavic world, regarded not only as intermediaries between humans and the divine, but also as guardians of knowledge and prophecy. To encounter the Volkhvy, even in historical imagination, is to step into a space where time seems to ripple, where the present brushes against a continuum of insight and intuition stretching across generations. Their prophecies were spoken in whispers, chanted in sacred groves, and sometimes recorded in fragmentary chronicles, leaving behind hints of visions that transcended the ordinary and touched the uncertain edges of the future. The word Volkhov evokes both reverence and caution. Historically, these figures wielded influence as spiritual guides, advisors to rulers, and keepers of ritual knowledge. Their predictions encompassed everything from the cycles of seasons to the fates of kingdoms, blending practical observation with mystical insight. In some accounts, Volkhvy were credited with foreseeing invasions, social upheavals, and natural events, forecasts that shaped political strategy and communal decision-making. Yet the nature of their insight remains largely mysterious. Did the Volkhvy rely solely on intuition and oral traditions? Or did their visions emerge from a deeper, systematic understanding of nature, human behavior, and celestial patterns? Could some element of their perception have reached beyond the tangible, brushing against forces that modern science has yet to understand? The landscape of their practice was integral to the prophecies themselves. Sacred groves, rivers, hilltops, and stone circles served as both stages and instruments for divination. Here, the Volkhvy performed rituals that involved chanting, drumming, fasting, and sometimes the use of hallucinogenic plants or other sensory tools designed to alter consciousness. Observers recorded that these practices allowed the seers to enter trance states where they received visions or auditory impressions that guided their pronouncements. Could these methods have induced heightened awareness or psychological states that allowed the Volkhvy to detect subtle patterns in nature and society, giving their predictions an uncanny accuracy that seemed supernatural? The prophecies themselves were often cryptic, layered with metaphor and imbued with symbolic meaning. Animals, celestial movements, seasonal shifts, and human behavior were woven together into narratives that required interpretation. Some scholars suggest that these messages functioned as both moral guidance and practical instruction, helping communities navigate uncertainty while preserving cultural memory. For instance, a prophecy might describe an approaching storm or invasion in allegorical terms, allowing its audience to prepare without revealing specifics that could incite panic. Could this symbolic encoding of knowledge indicate a sophisticated understanding of communication, psychology, and environmental observation that has been lost over the centuries? speculative accounts deepen the intrigue. Some traditions hold that the Volkhvy could access visions of distant lands, foresee the rise and fall of rulers, or even communicate with spirits of the departed. Others propose that their insight was connected to phenomena still poorly understood: geomagnetic anomalies, atmospheric conditions, or subtle shifts in human perception induced by ritual practice. Could it be that their foresight combined observation, intuition, and altered states of consciousness in a way that allowed them to anticipate events with remarkable accuracy? And if so, what might this suggest about the nature of human cognition and its relationship to unseen forces in the world? The influence of the Volkhvy extended far beyond spiritual matters. They advised princes and assemblies, shaped decisions in times of crisis, and acted as custodians of cultural continuity. Some chronicles describe rulers who would consult Volkhvy before embarking on military campaigns, while communities relied on them for guidance in matters of agriculture, justice, and diplomacy. In this sense, the prophecies were not abstract curiosities, but practical instruments, tools that guided social and political life. Could this dual role of seer and advisor explain why the Volkhvy were both revered and feared, positioned at the intersection of power, knowledge, and the unknown? Yet much about their prophecies remains tantalizingly unresolved. Written records are sparse and often second-hand, filtered through the lens of Christian chroniclers who sought to suppress pagan practices. Oral traditions survive, but even these are fragmentary, leaving modern historians to reconstruct patterns from scattered evidence. What did the Volkhvy truly foresee, and how did they distinguish between insight and intuition, observation and inspiration? Were some of their visions metaphorical rather than literal, meant to teach rather than predict? Or did they genuinely access phenomena beyond ordinary perception? The enduring fascination with the Volkhvy lies not only in what they predicted, but in how they did so. Their practice embodies a profound interplay between human consciousness, environment, and spirituality, a reminder that knowledge and wisdom can take forms beyond written texts and physical artifacts. The Volkhvy, in their forest groves and sacred spaces, challenge us to consider the limits of perception and the ways cultures encode understanding of the world through ritual, symbolism, and memory. As we reflect on the prophecies of the Volkhvy, one question persists in the quiet of forests, rivers, and plains where they once walked. What hidden knowledge, untapped insight, or unseen forces might have shaped their visions, and what truths remain buried, waiting for those patient enough to listen, interpret, and understand? On the windswept tundras and rocky shores of the Kola Peninsula, where the Arctic wind whistles across moss-covered stones and the midnight sun casts long shadows in the summer, there lie remnants of structures so enigmatic that they have captured the imagination of explorers and scholars for centuries. The Bronze Age labyrinths. These stone formations, often sprawling across hillsides or clustered near the edges of fjords, appear as intricate networks of walls and passages, meticulously arranged from massive boulders and smaller stones. From above, some resemble mazes, yet from the ground, they take on an almost hypnotic quality, guiding the eye in patterns both deliberate and confounding. To stand among these stones is to feel the pull of an ancient design, a spatial logic whose purpose remains tantalizingly beyond comprehension. Archaeologists date many of the Kola labyrinths to the Bronze Age, roughly between 2000 and 500 BC. Their construction coincided with the flourishing of seafaring and trade networks in the far north, hinting at a culture both sophisticated and deeply attuned to its environment. Yet despite careful study, the labyrinth's function remains uncertain. Were they ceremonial spaces designed for ritual processions or offerings to deities of the sun, sea, or underworld? Or did they serve practical purposes, perhaps as hunting traps, territorial markers, or astronomical observatories? The stones themselves offer few clues, their weathered surfaces eroded by millennia of wind and frost, yet their deliberate arrangement suggests intentionality, a symbolic logic that communicates across time. Local folklore adds further layers of intrigue. In Sami traditions and other northern legends, labyrinths were associated with spirits, journeys of the soul, and protective rites. Some stories claim that traversing the labyrinths could cleanse the spirit, ensure safe passage, or even guide one's soul toward ancestors. Could these narratives preserve echoes of Bronze Age beliefs, ritualized experiences embedded in the very design of the stones? And if so, might the labyrinths have been intended not only as physical spaces but as cognitive and spiritual instruments, shaping perception, movement, and consciousness? The sheer scale and precision of some labyrinths are remarkable. Walls composed of carefully selected stones can stretch tens of meters, forming paths that twist and turn in patterns often symmetrical or geometrically resonant. In some cases, the labyrinths appear to align with specific points on the horizon, such as the sunrise at solstice or the position of distant mountains. Could these arrangements reflect an early understanding of astronomy, geometry, or environmental observation, encoded into ritual architecture for both practical and symbolic purposes? And if so, what knowledge has been lost to time, leaving only these silent monuments to hint at its depth? Excavations have revealed that many labyrinths contain evidence of ritual activity. Hearths, animal bones, and occasional artifacts suggest that these spaces were more than mere stone constructions. They were lived in or visited, imbued with meaning. Yet much remains ambiguous. Were the labyrinths intended for solitary reflection, communal ceremonies, or even as a form of landscape-based storytelling, mapping myth, cosmology, or seasonal cycles onto the terrain itself? Some scholars argue that the structures could encode journeys, both literal and spiritual, guiding participants along a path that symbolized life, death, and renewal. Could this interplay between architecture and cognition represent an ancient method of transmitting knowledge across generations without written records? Speculative interpretations deepen the mystery. Certain labyrinths resemble patterns found in northern European megalithic structures, suggesting possible cultural connections or shared symbolic language. Some theorists propose that the labyrinths were connected to navigation, marking safe passages along the coast or signaling sacred sites. Others suggest they may have functioned as ritualized maps of the cosmos, translating celestial and terrestrial knowledge into tangible form. Could it be that these formations were simultaneously practical, spiritual, and symbolic, blending multiple layers of meaning into a single enduring design? The environment itself adds to the labyrinth's enigma. The Kola Peninsula is harsh, remote, and subject to extreme seasonal variation, yet these structures were painstakingly maintained in such conditions. The labor required to transport and arrange massive stones over uneven terrain reflects both social organization and devotion, implying that the labyrinths held profound significance for their creators. Could their construction have served to unify communities, transmit sacred knowledge, or assert territorial or spiritual authority in a landscape where survival was often precarious? Standing among the stones today, the labyrinths are silent, yet their presence evokes a sense of dialogue across time. One can almost imagine the Bronze Age builders moving deliberately through the pathways, performing rituals, observing the heavens, or contemplating the cycles of life and death. Their purpose may elude definitive explanation, but their effect remains undeniable. The labyrinths draw the observer into a space that is simultaneously physical, symbolic, and cognitive, inviting reflection, awe, and curiosity. As we consider the Bronze Age labyrinths of the Kola Peninsula, we are reminded that history is not solely preserved in written records or monumental cities. Sometimes it resides in patterns carved into the earth, in stones aligned with celestial rhythms, and in spaces designed to shape perception and belief. And so, as we continue our journey through the mysteries of ancient Russia, one question lingers in the cold northern air. What secrets, knowledge, or spiritual practices remain encoded within these labyrinths, waiting for the attentive eye, the patient mind, and the curious soul to discover? Nestled on the shores of Lake Pleshcheyevo, where the water shimmers in hues of silver and deep blue under the northern sky, lies a singular enigma, the Bluestone. Unlike the surrounding granite and quartz, this immense boulder draws the eye with a subtle, almost otherworldly luster, a muted reflection of the sky above that seems to pulse with an inner presence. Its surface is worn smooth in places, marred in others, suggesting centuries of human interaction and natural erosion. To touch it, or simply stand before it, is to feel a quiet weight, both physical and symbolic, a sense that this stone has witnessed events, rituals, and beliefs long vanished from memory. The Pleshcheyevo Bluestone has captured attention for centuries, referenced in chronicles, local folklore, and travel accounts. Archaeological study indicates that the stone has been venerated since at least the early medieval period, possibly earlier. It occupies a place not only in the natural landscape, but in the spiritual imagination of the region, associated with fertility rites, protection, and divine favor. Pilgrims and locals alike would leave offerings, walk in ceremonial circles around it, or engage in ritual acts meant to honor forces larger than themselves. Yet why this particular stone, and what inspired its selection over countless others scattered across the landscape? Geologically, the Bluestone is remarkable. Some researchers propose that it may have originated from glacial movement, deposited here during the last ice age. Its distinct mineral composition sets it apart from the local bedrock, hinting at a journey over millennia that left it stranded, as if by design, in this sacred space. Could its unusual hue and texture have contributed to its mystical reputation? Did the ancients recognize something in its composition that we fail to perceive today? An energy, resonance, or symbolic significance that made it worthy of ritual attention? Folklore enhances the stone's allure. Local tales describe it as imbued with power, capable of influencing the weather, ensuring successful harvests, or even affecting human fortune. Some stories speak of the stone moving mysteriously during the night, returning to its original position by dawn. Others claim that those who spend time in its presence may receive visions or sudden insight. Is this purely myth, shaped over centuries of reverence and imagination? Or could there be a perceptible phenomenon, thermal, acoustic, or magnetic, underlying the accounts? Perhaps the stone's resonance, subtle yet undeniable, interacts with human perception in ways that invite awe and contemplation. Historical chronicles, including early Russian manuscripts, reference gatherings at the Bluestone for solemn ceremonies. Priests, elders, and community leaders reportedly performed rites there during solstices, seasonal transitions, and moments of social importance. Such acts link the stone to communal cohesion and spiritual authority, suggesting that its significance extended beyond local superstition. Could it be that the Bluestone served as a focal point for observing celestial events, for harmonizing human activity with cycles of nature, or for encoding cultural knowledge into a tangible, enduring monument? Some scholars and enthusiasts draw connections between the Pleshcheyevo Bluestone and other sacred stones across northern Europe, noting similarities in placement, size, and ritual use. Could this indicate a shared symbolic language among ancient peoples, or a convergence in recognizing particular geological forms as vessels of power and memory? And if so, what does this suggest about the transmission of spiritual and cultural knowledge across vast landscapes prior to the invention of writing or formal record-keeping? Beyond the academic and folkloric, there is the experiential dimension of the stone. Witnesses report a sense of presence, a pull toward reflection, meditation, or contemplation. Standing near it, one cannot help but notice the interplay of light and shadow, the way the lake mirrors the sky, and the subtle sounds of wind, water, and distant wildlife. Could the placement of the stone, its orientation to the lake, and its prominence in the landscape have been deliberately chosen to enhance this perceptual experience, creating a natural amphitheater for ritual and reflection? Might the ancients have understood, intuitively or empirically, how such a focal point could shape consciousness, perception, and memory? Speculative theories further heighten the blue stone's mystique. Some propose that its unusual properties, hue, size, or geomagnetic characteristics, may have influenced human physiology or cognition in subtle ways, amplifying ritual experience or spiritual perception. Others suggest that the stone marks a site of ancient astronomical observation, aligning with solstices, equinoxes, or other celestial events. Could the Pleshcheyevo blue stone have functioned simultaneously as a spiritual altar, a cultural landmark, and a tool for environmental and cosmic awareness, bridging material and immaterial realms? Even today, the stone continues to inspire curiosity, devotion, and study. Archaeologists, geologists, folklorists, and visitors alike are drawn to its presence, yet its full significance remains elusive. It is a relic of a time when humans and the landscape were deeply intertwined, when sacredness was assigned not to constructed temples alone, but to stones, waters, and skies, an understanding that emphasized relationship, reverence, and perception. As we reflect upon the Pleshcheyevo blue stone, we are reminded that history and mystery often coexist in tangible objects, in the silent witness of natural monuments shaped by both nature and human attention. And so, as we continue our exploration of ancient Russia's enigmas, one question lingers upon the shores of Lake Pleshcheyevo. What hidden knowledge, ritual significance, or cosmic insight remains encoded in this stone, waiting for those willing to observe, ponder, and wonder at the mysteries that endure? Far to the north, across the frozen expanses of Siberia and along the rugged coastline of the Arctic Ocean, there are whispers of beings who once walked the land in a time almost beyond memory, the Samoyed giants. These figures, described in ancient oral traditions and later chronicled by explorers and ethnographers, are said to have towered over ordinary humans, their presence both awe-inspiring and terrifying. To envision them is to imagine a world where the scale of existence itself was different, where the very relationship between human, land, and sky was measured against giants whose footprints could shape valleys and whose voices might echo across tundras. The Samoyed peoples, indigenous to this region, have preserved stories of these enormous ancestors for centuries. In legends passed down through generations, the giants are portrayed as both creators and custodians, beings who shaped rivers, mountains, and forests, taught survival skills, and imparted knowledge of hunting, fishing, and celestial observation. They were often described with exaggerated physical proportions, yet their deeds carry a tangible resonance, hinting at a symbolic or mythic interpretation as much as a literal one. Could these narratives encode collective memory of extraordinary individuals, ancestral experiences, or perhaps natural events, perceived through the lens of awe and reverence? Archaeological and geological findings in the far north add layers of intrigue. Massive stone formations, unusually large tools, and remnants of structures that defy conventional understanding have been discovered across Siberian landscapes. While mainstream interpretations often attribute these to glacial movement, erosion, or exaggeration in storytelling, some researchers suggest that such artifacts may have inspired the legends of giants. Were these objects simply misinterpreted by early observers, or could they reflect encounters with extraordinary human phenotypes now lost to history that were remarkable enough to inspire myths of immense size? The descriptions of the Samoyed giants frequently include associations with natural phenomena. In some accounts, they were said to control weather patterns, summon storms, or influence the movement of ice and snow. Could these stories have arisen from the volatile and extreme climate of the Arctic regions, anthropomorphized into beings whose strength and scale mirrored the forces of nature itself? Alternatively, might the legends preserve ancient observations of rare events, glacial collapses, auroral displays, or seismic disturbances, woven into the narrative fabric of a people attuned to survival in one of the planet's harshest environments? Folklorists note that the giants are often depicted not as mindless creatures, but as beings of intelligence, moral guidance, and profound knowledge. They provided instruction in rituals, sacred spaces, and survival techniques, offering both protection and teaching. This duality, immense strength paired with wisdom, suggests that the legends were more than cautionary tales. They may have functioned as frameworks for cultural memory, encoding ethical, environmental, and social knowledge into narratives that could be transmitted across generations. Could this indicate that the giants represent a symbolic archetype, embodying the ideals, fears, and aspirations of Arctic societies rather than literal beings? Speculative interpretations extend even further. Some researchers propose that the tales of the Samoyed giants may preserve distorted memory of interactions with now extinct hominid populations, or even reflect encounters with unusually large human phenotypes adapted to extreme northern conditions. Others suggest that the giants are metaphors for environmental forces, their footprints and voices representing the tangible impact of glaciers, winds, and shifting ice on the land. Could it be that the stories blend literal, symbolic, and experiential elements in a complex system of knowledge designed to help humans navigate a perilous and dynamic world? The landscape itself reinforces the legend. The vast tundras, jagged hills, and frozen rivers evoke a sense of scale that feels almost supernatural. To traverse these regions is to experience the same awe that the Samoyed peoples likely felt when imagining beings of enormous size and power. Could it be that the geography and climate of northern Russia shaped not only human survival but the imagination itself, giving rise to legends that attempted to reconcile human scale with the overwhelming forces of nature? Even today, traces of the giants persist in oral tradition, scattered ethnographic records, and the occasional anomalous artifact. Modern explorers and scientists report a profound sense of presence when visiting the remote landscapes associated with these tales, as if the memory of immense beings still lingers in the stones, the snow, and the wind. Could it be that the legends encode a collective perception of history and environment, a form of ancestral memory preserved in story and ritual, waiting for those attentive enough to notice subtle patterns across the landscape? As we reflect on the Samoyed giants, we are reminded that human imagination, observation, and memory can merge into narratives that endure for millennia, shaping culture, ethics, and understanding of the world. They challenge us to consider the interface between myth and reality, between environmental experience and narrative memory. And as we continue our journey through the mysteries of ancient Russia, one question hovers in the northern wind. Were the Samoyed giants truly extraordinary beings, symbolic constructs, or an elegant fusion of both? And what might the tundra still conceal about their story, waiting for the observant and patient eye to uncover? Across the rolling forests, winding rivers, and open plains of ancient Rus, there echoes a legend of warriors whose deeds have transcended time, the Bogatyri. These figures, immortalized in epic songs and chronicles, were more than mere fighters. They were guardians of the people, defenders of the land, and symbols of strength, courage, and wisdom. To stand in the places associated with these heroes, on a riverbank where a decisive battle may have taken place, among the hills that once witnessed their vigilance, is to feel a connection to a past where the line between history and myth is intentionally blurred, where extraordinary human achievement is intertwined with the mysterious and the sublime. The earliest written mentions of the Bogatyri appear in Bylini, the oral epic tales passed down through generations. These stories speak of giants among men, figures such as Ilya Muromets, Dobrynya Nikitich, and Alyosha Popovich, whose feats protected towns from invaders, tamed wild beasts, and confronted forces beyond ordinary comprehension. Yet while the Bylini preserve their heroism, they leave open the question, were these individuals purely mythic constructs, or might they be reflections of real people whose extraordinary skills and stature inspired generations of storytellers? Historical and archaeological evidence provides tantalizing hints. Early Rus' communities faced repeated threats from nomadic incursions and rival principalities. In such a volatile environment, the emergence of elite warriors capable of extraordinary endurance, strength, and tactical ingenuity would have been crucial. Could the Bogatyri have originated as an elite warrior class, exceptional in physical prowess and strategic skill, whose exploits were gradually elevated into mythic status? Some scholars suggest that these figures may represent a synthesis of historical experience, cultural ideals, and imaginative storytelling, a blend designed to inspire, instruct, and unify communities under shared narratives of valor and virtue. The geography of ancient Rus plays a significant role in shaping the legends. Dense forests, broad rivers, and expansive plains form both stage and character in the epics, offering natural challenges that would test any hero. Many of the Bylini situate the Bogatyri in the vicinity of major river systems, suggesting that control of waterways, trade routes, and borders was as essential to their fame as combat prowess. Could these locations, repeated across tales and memory, preserve echoes of real strategic importance, marking sites where individuals acted decisively to protect their communities or secure resources? And if so, might the enduring myths encode not only heroism, but practical knowledge of survival, geography, and defense? Beyond martial skill, the Bogatyri were revered for wisdom, moral judgment, and spiritual awareness. Tales describe them negotiating conflicts, protecting the vulnerable, and confronting supernatural threats. Dragons, sorcerers, and malevolent spirits that represented the unknown and the dangerous. Here, the line between historical reality and symbolic representation blurs further. Could these fantastical elements represent allegorical challenges, societal fears, or natural forces experienced as threats in the landscape of medieval Rus? Perhaps the stories preserved a sophisticated method of encoding ethical and environmental understanding into narratives that were compelling, memorable, and instructional. Speculative theories deepen the intrigue surrounding the Bogatyri. Some suggest that these figures were descended from northern warrior clans, physically larger or genetically distinct due to isolated adaptation to harsh climates. Others propose that they may have been inspired by encounters with unusual humans or cultural exchanges along trade routes connecting Rus to the far north, the steppe, or even more distant regions. Could the Bogatyri reflect a fusion of real individuals, archetypal symbols, and mythic imagination? A multidimensional construct designed to preserve both history and cultural identity? The rituals and social structures of early Rus' communities further illuminate the possible origins of the Bogatyri. Warriors were often closely tied to local leaders, religious observances, and seasonal festivals, suggesting that heroism was both celebrated and codified within social frameworks. Could the epic tales themselves have functioned as a form of ritualized memory, reinforcing communal values, moral codes, and social cohesion? And might the extraordinary abilities attributed to the Bogatyri, strength, endurance, courage, reflect not exaggeration alone, but the veneration of qualities essential to survival in a challenging and unpredictable world? Even in contemporary Russia, the presence of the Bogatyri endures in monuments, literature, and folk performance. Statues of Ilya Muromets astride his horse, literary reinterpretations of the Bylany, and oral retellings all reflect a culture in dialogue with its own mythic past. The Bogatyri continue to inspire reflection on what it means to protect, endure, and act with honor. Could this lasting fascination suggest that the epic heroes occupy a liminal space, at once real and imagined, human and archetypal, historical and transcendent? As we contemplate the origins of the Bogatyri, one question persists. Are we observing the shadows of historical figures whose extraordinary feats have been magnified over time, or are we witnessing the enduring power of cultural imagination, capable of shaping collective memory and identity for centuries? Perhaps in truth, the Bogatyri are both, a testament to human courage, ingenuity, and the enduring human desire to make sense of the world through story. And so as we continue our exploration of ancient Russia's mysteries, we are left to wonder what truths, hidden deeds, or symbolic legacies lie behind these epic heroes, waiting to be discovered by those who listen carefully to the echoes of the past. Along the twisting rivers and dense forests of early Rus, the foundations of a dynasty were laid, one whose origins remain cloaked in enigma, the Rurik dynasty. It is said that Rurik, a figure both historical and legendary, arrived from distant lands to establish rule in Novgorod, setting into motion a line of princes who would shape the destiny of Ruses for centuries. To wander the banks of the Volkhov River or the ancient streets of Novgorod is to tread upon soil steeped in centuries of governance, diplomacy, and intrigue, a terrain where history and legend intertwine, and where the origins of power remain shrouded in mystery. The primary chronicle, a key historical source, presents Rurik as a Varangian chieftain invited to bring order to the region in the 9th century. Yet the narrative raises as many questions as it answers. Was Rurik a real figure, or a composite symbol created to legitimize rule and unify diverse tribes? Did his arrival mark a genuine migration of Norse warriors, or was it a later interpretation, shaped by political needs and oral storytelling traditions? The ambiguity of early records leaves room for speculation, inviting us to wonder how much of Rus's early political formation was historical fact, and how much was shaped by myth and memory. Archaeology provides tantalizing hints but few definitive answers. Excavations in Novgorod, Ladoga, and other early centers reveal Norse-style artifacts, weapons, and burial practices, suggesting significant contact with Scandinavian cultures. Yet the evidence is complex. Items of local craftsmanship appear alongside imported goods, indicating not only trade but cultural assimilation and adaptation. Could the Rurik dynasty have emerged from this intricate tapestry of migration, alliance, and assimilation, blending local authority with foreign influence in a manner that later chroniclers distilled into the figure of Rurik? The dynastic narrative deepens in complexity when considering its subsequent reach. From Rurik's supposed arrival, his descendants established rule over Kiev, forming the foundation of Kievan Rus, a polity whose influence extended across vast rivers, forests, and steppe lands. Yet the familial line, its legitimacy, and its continuity are often veiled in ambiguity. Claims of descent, contested succession, and the integration of local leaders suggest that dynastic power was as much negotiated as inherited. Could this murky lineage reflect a broader pattern in which early rulers were legitimized through myth-making, oral tradition, and symbolic authority rather than written documentation alone? The enigma of the Rurikids is further complicated by their supposed Varangian origin. Were they Scandinavian adventurers who settled among Slavic peoples, or did their roots lie in local chieftains whose stories were later intertwined with northern legends? Genetic studies and historical research provide partial insights, yet definitive answers remain elusive. Might the dynasty's origin story have been deliberately framed to convey legitimacy, connecting rulers to the wider world of trade, martial prowess, and cosmopolitan authority? And if so, what truths might lie beneath these constructed narratives, waiting to be revealed through careful investigation and interpretation? Folklore and legend amplify the dynasty's mystique. Tales describe Rurik as a figure of extraordinary presence, a bringer of order in a fragmented land, and the progenitor of heroes whose deeds would resonate through generations. Could these stories encode historical memory of migration, alliances, and military campaigns, transformed into symbolic narratives to instill identity, loyalty, and cultural continuity? Perhaps the mythic aspects of the Rurikids were as essential to governance as their actual rule, creating a framework through which societies understood power, legitimacy, and social order. The landscape itself reinforces the mystery. Rivers such as the Volkhov, Dnieper, and Oka were not mere geographical features, but lifelines, facilitating travel, trade, and communication. Settlements along these waterways reveal patterns of strategic choice and cultural exchange, suggesting that the dynasty's power was intimately tied to the environment. Could Rurik's success, whether historical or symbolic, have depended as much on geographic acumen as on martial skill, integrating human endeavor with the natural rhythms of the land? Speculative theories extend the enigma even further. Some historians propose that Rurik represents a conflation of multiple leaders, amalgamated into a single figure to serve dynastic narrative purposes. Others suggest that his story was retroactively constructed to create a coherent lineage for the rulers of Kiev and Rus, and later Muscovy, providing continuity in times of political fragmentation. Could the Rurikid narrative reflect an early understanding of the power of myth-making itself, a deliberate blending of fact and fiction designed to endure across centuries? Even today, the legacy of the Rurik dynasty resonates in the cultural and political imagination of Russia. Monuments, chronicles, and genealogical studies trace connections to these early rulers, yet the mystery of their origins remains intact. Their story reminds us that power and identity are often constructed as much through narrative as through action, that the past is as much interpreted as it is lived. As we consider the Rurik dynasty, one question lingers in the ancient forests, rivers, and towns of Rus. Was Rurik a single historical figure who changed the course of a nation, or a symbol, a convergence of peoples and events encoded into legend to explain the emergence of authority? And more profoundly, what does this enduring enigma reveal about the ways humans preserve, transform, and mythologize their own history, leaving traces of truth intertwined with the extraordinary for future generations to ponder? Perched on the windswept cliffs of the Baltic coast, where the waves crash against jagged stone and the horizon stretches endlessly into cold, gray waters, the remnants of Arkona whisper of a distant past. This was once the sacred center of the Slavic Rani people, a fortress and holy site whose fame extended across northern lands. But what captures the imagination most vividly are the idols, towering wooden figures that, though now lost to fire, conquest, and time, continue to haunt historical records and archaeological memory. They are said to have embodied gods and spirits, guardians of the land, and arbiters of the unseen world, standing vigil over the community and its rituals for centuries. Historical accounts describe Arkona's main sanctuary as dominated by a great idol of Svantovit, the four-headed deity of war and abundance, whose gaze was said to encompass every direction, and whose presence was invoked in moments of both war and harvest. Smaller idols and carvings filled the surrounding temple precincts, each representing aspects of life, nature, and cosmic order. Chronicles by foreign observers, including Danish and German sources, speak of ceremonies, offerings, and sacred spaces in ways that suggest not only deep spiritual significance, but a sophisticated understanding of social cohesion through religious practice. Yet how much of this description is literal, and how much a lens shaped by outsiders attempting to interpret a foreign culture remains uncertain. The physical evidence that remains is fragmentary but tantalizing. Excavations on the island of Rugen have uncovered post holes, fragments of ritual structures, and charred remnants of wooden sculptures, hinting at the scale and complexity of the Arkona temple. Scholars debate the precise meaning of these artifacts, and even the placement of the idols themselves remains conjectural. Could these structures, oriented with attention to the sun, moon, or stars, suggest a cosmological knowledge embedded in sacred architecture, merging spiritual devotion with astronomical observation? If so, the Arkona idols were not merely symbols of belief, but conduits through which people interacted with the world in ways both practical and profound. Legends and later folklore further expand the mystery. Svantovit and other Arkona deities were credited with immense power, foretelling victory or disaster, guiding rulers and protecting the people from both natural and supernatural threats. Could these attributions reflect memories of leaders or communities whose authority derived in part from ritual and spiritual influence rather than raw military power alone? Were the idols themselves focal points of societal order, combining religious symbolism with political significance? And might the dramatic accounts of their destruction in the 12th century, when Danish forces razed the temple, preserve not only history, but a cultural trauma, a collective memory of spiritual and communal loss? Speculative interpretations also emerge when considering the iconography and scale of the idols. Contemporary descriptions suggest colossal figures, carved with precision and painted in vibrant hues, with intricate detailing of faces, symbols, and attributes. Some modern researchers have posited that the Arkona idols may encode lost knowledge, cosmological, agricultural, or even mathematical. Could it be that these figures functioned as mnemonic devices, teaching tools, or repositories of communal memory, accessible through ritual and repetition rather than writing? Alternatively, might the exaggeration of size and power reflect human attempts to conceptualize the divine, turning the unknown into forms tangible enough to inspire awe? The cultural and geopolitical context of Arkona adds layers to the enigma. Positioned at a crossroads of trade, migration, and conflict, the Rani and their sacred center were exposed to influences from Scandinavia, the Baltic tribes, and even the Slavic mainland. Could the idols have reflected not only indigenous spiritual traditions, but also absorbed and synthesized elements from neighboring cultures, creating a hybrid sacred landscape? And if so, might this syncretism offer insights into how ancient peoples navigated identity, belief, and authority in a contested and interconnected world? Even the process of their destruction is itself mysterious. Chronicles describe the felling of idols and the burning of sacred groves, yet some reports suggest fragments may have survived, hidden by locals or dispersed across the region. Could remnants of these idols lie buried beneath soil or submerged in coastal waters, awaiting discovery? And if physical traces exist, might they finally reveal secrets about craftsmanship, ritual practice, or cultural exchange previously lost to history? The Arkona idols continue to resonate in modern imagination, inspiring scholarship, art, and cultural memory. They remind us that the sacred can shape both human perception and the physical landscape, creating monuments whose impact endures long after their destruction. Could it be that the story of Arkona is as much about the resilience of memory as it is about religious devotion, a testament to the power of place, symbol, and narrative to transcend centuries? As we consider the idols of Arkona, one question lingers over the wind-swept cliffs and echoing waves. What truths, practices, and knowledge were embodied in these sacred figures, and how much of that remains hidden, waiting for the patient and attentive to uncover? Were they merely objects of worship, or keys to understanding a society whose beliefs, ingenuity, and spiritual sophistication rivaled any civilization of its time? And as we continue our journey through the mysteries of ancient Russia, the shadows of Arkona invite us to wonder what fragments of the past still survive, silently guarding their secrets. Beneath the bustling streets of modern Kiev, carved into the soft slopes of the Dnieper River hills, lie labyrinthine passages that have witnessed centuries of devotion, secrecy, and human endurance. The cave monasteries of Kiev. From the outside, the city hums with life, its churches and markets vibrant with activity. But descend into the subterranean world of stone and shadow, and a different reality emerges. A network of tunnels and chambers where light is scarce, silence is profound, and the past seems to linger like an unbroken breath. The caves, known locally as the Kiev-Pechersk Lavra, were established in the 11th century, forming one of the earliest and most significant monastic complexes in Eastern Europe. Initially, ascetic monks sought solitude here, carving cells into the limestone cliffs to devote themselves to prayer, meditation, and labor. Over time, these humble beginnings expanded into an intricate subterranean network, with chapels, burial sites, and sacred relics filling the underground chambers. Walk among these tunnels today, and the air is heavy with centuries of incense, whispered prayers, and the lingering presence of those who chose this hidden world as their spiritual home. Historical records reveal both the spiritual and cultural significance of the Lavra. It became a center of Orthodox Christianity, a repository of manuscripts, icons, and religious knowledge, and a place of pilgrimage for believers across Rus and beyond. But the caves themselves hold mysteries that defy straightforward explanation. Some corridors twist in ways that seem deliberately disorienting, while certain chambers possess acoustics that amplify the faintest sound into a resonant echo, creating an atmosphere both awe-inspiring and unsettling. Were these design choices purely functional, or did they reflect an understanding of space, psychology, and ritual meant to enhance spiritual experience? Archaeological study has revealed that the caves served multiple purposes: monastic cells, burial sites for holy men, and repositories for sacred relics and manuscripts. Skeletal remains, preserved by the stable subterranean climate, offer glimpses into the lives of these early ascetics, evidence of diet, health, and ritual practice. Yet questions persist. How much of the underground network remains unexplored? Could there be hidden chambers, sealed centuries ago, that might contain manuscripts, icons, or artifacts lost to history? And what might these secrets reveal about the beliefs, knowledge, or even scientific understanding of those who carved and inhabited these tunnels? The mystical aura of the caves is amplified by centuries of legend. Stories describe miraculous interventions, saints appearing in visions, and relics that emit inexplicable light or warmth. Monks were said to emerge from the shadows bearing wisdom, prophecy, or sacred insight. Could these tales be symbolic expressions of spiritual experiences, encoded as narrative to preserve communal memory? Or might they hint at phenomena, perhaps natural, perhaps extraordinary, that were observed and recorded through the lens of faith? The line between historical reality and the ineffable remains deliberately, hauntingly blurred. The cave's physical features further intrigue. Some chambers are marked with enigmatic inscriptions, cryptic symbols, and carvings whose meaning has been partially lost to time. Could these represent early forms of cryptography, spiritual codices, or simply artistic expression? Certain tunnels align with the rising sun or prominent stars at specific times of the year, suggesting that their builders possessed not only religious devotion, but a sophisticated awareness of astronomy and seasonal cycles. Was this alignment coincidental, or does it reflect a deliberate integration of cosmic knowledge into sacred architecture, a silent dialogue between heaven and earth? Speculative theories extend the Lavra's mystery even further. Some researchers suggest that the underground network was designed not only for spiritual purposes, but also as a refuge in times of invasion, civil unrest, or plague, a hidden city beneath the city. Could these passages have functioned as secret archives, preserving knowledge and artifacts that the wider world might have sought to destroy? And if so, might remnants of this hidden heritage still lie undiscovered, waiting for the patient eye and careful hand to uncover them? The cultural and spiritual significance of the Kiev caves has endured, not only as a religious site, but as a symbol of human persistence and the quest for transcendence. Pilgrims continue to descend into the darkness, candles flickering against ancient stone, seeking reflection, solace, or connection with the generations who came before. Could it be that part of the cave's enduring power lies not in what is seen, but in what remains unseen, the spaces, passages, and stories yet untouched by time? Even in the modern city above, the Lavra's influence resonates. Its presence has shaped Kiev's identity, linking contemporary life with centuries of spiritual, cultural, and architectural achievement. Yet, the subterranean world remains largely enigmatic, a reminder that even in a well-documented historical context, there are layers of human experience and knowledge that elude observation, hidden beneath surface understanding. As we trace the silent corridors and shadowed chapels of the Kiev cave monasteries, one question lingers. What truths, memories, and secrets remain trapped in stone, waiting to be revealed? Could these underground passages hold not only the history of faith, but also forgotten wisdom, lost technologies, or insights into the minds and spirits of those who carved, prayed, and lived within them? And as we continue our journey through the mysteries of ancient Russia, the quiet darkness of the Lavra invites us to wonder what still lies hidden beneath the city, where light barely penetrates and the echoes of the past endure. In the quiet corners of ancient Slavic settlements, etched into wooden tablets, carved into stone, or whispered through generations, there may have existed scripts and symbols now lost to time, writing systems that predate the familiar Cyrillic alphabet and hint at a sophisticated yet enigmatic literate culture. These forgotten inscriptions, fragments, and traces of communication suggest that the Slavs were not only builders of cities and temples, warriors and farmers, but also recorders of knowledge, carriers of language encoded into symbols whose meaning has eluded modern scholarship. The historical record gives tantalizing glimpses. While the Cyrillic and Glagolitic alphabets emerged in the 9th and 10th centuries under the guidance of Saints Cyril and Methodius, scholars have long speculated that these were not the first attempts at Slavic writing. Early chronicles, later interpretations, and scattered archaeological finds hint at symbols on stones, ceramics, and amulets, marks that may have served as ritual notations, calendrical indicators, or even proto-writing for commerce and governance. Could these mysterious signs have been a fully functional writing system, used by communities to transmit complex ideas long before formal alphabets were codified? Archaeological evidence, though sparse, sparks curiosity. Some artifacts bear sequences of linear marks, geometric patterns, or pictographic figures, suggesting intentional communication rather than mere decoration. Sites across Eastern Europe, from river valleys to forest clearings, yield fragments of wood, bone, and stone inscribed with shapes that resist modern interpretation. Were these marks mnemonic devices, sacred symbols, or practical records of trade, ownership, or law? And if so, how much knowledge might have been lost when these materials decayed, were destroyed, or deliberately suppressed by later religious or political authorities? The lost writing systems also invite questions about cultural exchange and influence. The Slavs lived at a crossroads of trade and migration, interacting with Byzantine, Scandinavian, and steppe cultures. Could these enigmatic scripts represent hybrid forms of communication, blending local innovation with borrowed techniques? Might the Slavs have developed symbols to correspond with oral tradition, integrating phonetics, numerology, and cosmology in ways we can scarcely reconstruct today? The possibilities open vast landscapes of inquiry, suggesting a civilization capable of abstract thought and sophisticated record-keeping long before the surviving alphabets emerged. Folklore and legend further shroud these lost scripts in mystery. Stories of magical symbols, talismans, and inscriptions that grant protection, knowledge, or foresight are pervasive across Slavic cultures. Could these tales encode historical memory, preserving the notion that writing once existed outside the familiar alphabets, a form of knowledge accessible only to the initiated? And if so, what might have been lost in the transition to standardized scripts, rituals, songs, historical accounts, or even technical knowledge, all once encoded in symbols that no longer speak? Some researchers propose that the lost scripts may have been deliberately concealed. In a world increasingly dominated by organized religion and central authority, local traditions could have been suppressed, their symbols eradicated or hidden to consolidate spiritual or political control. Could wooden tablets, carved staves, or sacred stones have been destroyed, leaving only faint traces in folklore or sporadic archaeological finds? And if fragments survive, might they lie undiscovered in riverbeds, forested mounds, or underground caches, waiting to reveal forgotten knowledge? Speculative theories abound. Some argue that the lost Slavic scripts might have incorporated astronomical knowledge, calendrical systems, or even early forms of numeracy, preserved in ways we cannot fully decode. Others suggest that the symbols were mnemonic, designed to transmit oral history through visual cues rather than phonetic representation. Could these lost writing systems have been as vital to Slavic society as the more familiar alphabets that followed, silently shaping governance, ritual, and culture in ways we are only beginning to imagine? The very act of reconstruction is complicated by the absence of a Rosetta Stone, a bilingual key, or continuous textual tradition. Without such a guide, each mark or sequence becomes a puzzle, open to interpretation and debate. Yet, even in their absence, these lost scripts remind us of the Slavs' intellectual and cultural richness, a testament to human ingenuity in a world where survival often took precedence over the preservation of knowledge. Could the lost writing systems of the Slavs represent a hidden layer of history, a network of thought and expression whose echoes persist only faintly in folklore, architecture, and ritual? Even as we piece together fragments from scattered sources, the mystery persists. The lost Slavic scripts challenge our assumptions about literacy, communication, and cultural development. They hint at civilizations capable of abstract representation, of encoding complex ideas into symbols, and of sustaining knowledge across generations, even when tangible evidence has mostly vanished. As we contemplate these vanished systems, one question lingers. What knowledge, stories, or wisdom were once contained in these lost inscriptions? Could deciphering even a single fragment reshape our understanding of early Slavic civilization, revealing a literate and sophisticated culture hidden beneath the layers of later history? And as we continue to explore the mysteries of ancient Russia, the silent marks, long buried or erased, invite us to wonder what still lies hidden, waiting for the patient observer to uncover it. On the southwestern shores of the Taman Peninsula, where the waters of the Sea of Azov meet shifting river deltas and marshlands, lie traces of a city that seems to have vanished beneath the waves of history. Tmutarakan. Once a thriving hub of trade, politics, and culture in the early medieval period, this settlement has been dubbed the Russian Atlantis, not for its mythic grandeur, but for the eerie manner in which it appears and disappears from the historical record. Stand on the windswept banks today, and the landscape offers only reeds, tidal flats, and scattered ruins, yet beneath these quiet waters lies a city whose story has fascinated scholars, sailors, and explorers for centuries. Historical chronicles place Tmutarakan at the crossroads of Rus, Byzantine, and Khazar influence, a strategic outpost on the edge of empires. It was a place of commerce and diplomacy, connecting inland principalities with the Black Sea and beyond. Yet, despite its importance, the city seems to have slipped through the cracks of history, leaving tantalizing fragments, coins, inscriptions, the foundations of fortifications, and traces of wharves now submerged or eroded. How could a city so significant, once bustling with merchants, soldiers, and artisans, fade almost entirely from memory? Archaeological exploration reveals both intrigue and frustration. Layers of settlement indicate repeated habitation, destruction, and reconstruction, suggesting a city constantly negotiating the volatile forces of nature and politics. Flooding, shifting river channels, and seismic activity may have contributed to the gradual submergence of parts of the city, while political upheavals and invasions could have accelerated its abandonment. Yet even with these plausible explanations, mysteries remain. Could entire districts, temples, or archives still lie buried beneath mud and silt, waiting for patient excavation to reveal their secrets? Tmutarakan's strategic location, connecting rivers to the sea, hints at knowledge and infrastructure that surpasses what one might expect from a frontier outpost. Some researchers speculate that the city was equipped with canals, bridges, and fortifications designed to control both water and land routes. Did the architects of Tmutarakan possess engineering knowledge lost to time? Or did the city's eventual disappearance erase the evidence of a complex urban plan that rivaled other early medieval centers in sophistication? The silence of the archaeological record leaves these questions open, each fragment of pottery or coin a whisper of what was once monumental. The legends surrounding Tmutarakan add a layer of narrative mystery. Medieval accounts speak of rulers, battles, and the city's prosperity, yet they often blur fact with myth. Some tales suggest hidden treasures, sacred relics, or artifacts that vanished with the city's decline. Could these stories preserve distorted memories of real events, or do they reflect the human tendency to mythologize loss, transforming historical disappearance into legend? The line between reality and imagination is faint, yet it adds to the city's enduring allure, inviting exploration and speculation alike. Environmental forces further complicate the mystery. The deltaic region is prone to floods and shifting channels, suggesting that the city's disappearance may not have been sudden but gradual, a slow drowning under sediment and water. Could this slow submergence have preserved aspects of the city, creating an underwater time capsule of urban life, commerce, and ritual? Or did the currents and erosion scatter evidence so completely that the city's memory exists now only in written chronicles and fragmented artifacts? Tmutarakan also raises questions about the intersection of culture, trade, and knowledge. Situated at the edge of Rus's influence and bordering Byzantine and Khazar territories, the city may have been a melting pot of language, religion, and technology. Could the lost archives, inscriptions, or manuscripts of Tmutarakan have contained insights into trade networks, legal systems, or cosmological understanding that the world has yet to recover? And if fragments exist underwater or beneath layers of sediment, might they reveal a level of sophistication and connectivity previously unimagined for this region? Speculative theories extend the enigma further. Some modern observers have imagined Tmutarakan as a semi-mythical city, intentionally lost in memory to conceal sacred knowledge or strategic secrets. Others suggest that the city's disappearance served as a cautionary tale, reflecting the fragility of human settlement in the face of nature's persistent forces. Could both natural and human factors have intertwined to erase the city from sight, leaving only a faint imprint on maps, chronicles, and local folklore? Today, the Russian Atlantis invites both scientific inquiry and imaginative reflection, diving into the shallow waters, examining the eroded riverbanks, and studying scattered artifacts allows historians and archaeologists to reconstruct only fragments of the city's grandeur and significance. Yet the most compelling mystery remains the same as it has for centuries: what truly lies beneath the waters, hidden by time, sediment, and secrecy. Could Tmutarakan, once a bustling crossroads of culture and power, be whispering its story through coins, ruins, and legends, waiting for discovery? As we stand on the shores of this enigmatic delta, watching the waters lap against the land, one question persists. What knowledge, art, or history vanished with Tmutarakan, and what might still endure beneath the mud and waves, invisible to the eye but present in memory and imagination? And as we continue our journey through the mysteries of ancient Russia, the lost city challenges us to contemplate the fragile boundary between permanence and disappearance, between what is recorded and what remains forever hidden. In the quiet, rolling landscapes along the Zbruch River, where mist drifts over reeds and the water reflects the changing sky, there stands, or once stood, an enigmatic figure that has captivated historians and archaeologists alike: the idol of Great Zbruch. Carved from stone, weathered by centuries, yet imposing in its presence, this statue is more than a relic. It is a silent testament to beliefs, rituals, and societies that have long vanished. Towering and segmented, its form is intricate yet stark, a puzzle of limbs, faces, and symbols whose precise meaning continues to elude modern understanding. Discovered in the mid-19th century, partially submerged in the river, the idol immediately sparked intrigue. Scholars quickly identified it as a pre-Christian Slavic monument, yet even this classification cannot fully convey its complexity. The four-tiered figure appears to embody multiple layers of meaning. Some interpret the tiers as representations of the underworld, the earthly plane, and the heavens above, a cosmic diagram carved in stone. Others see faces staring from every angle, as if the idol is eternally observing the world, recording both the mundane and the sacred. Could it be both a spiritual guide and a societal chronicle, an artifact bridging mythology, religion, and memory? Its craftsmanship hints at a culture of deep symbolism. The surfaces are etched with patterns whose purposes are debated. Are they magical sigils, calendrical markers, or representations of deities? Comparisons with other Slavic and Baltic artifacts suggest an intricate iconography, yet the Zbruch Idol stands alone in its scale and sophistication. Was it created by a single community, or does it represent a convergence of multiple cultural traditions, preserved in stone for generations to witness and revere? The context of its discovery adds to the mystery. Found in a riverbed, partially eroded, the idol may have been intentionally deposited, perhaps as part of a ritual, or it may have been swept from a now-lost site during floods or conflict. Some historians propose that the idol's placement in water reflects a sacred practice, connecting the spiritual and natural worlds. Could the river itself have been considered a boundary between realms, and the idol a guardian or mediator? If so, what beliefs, stories, and ceremonies once surrounded it, now lost to time? the idol's function is equally enigmatic. Was it a temple object, a communal monument, or a personal talisman elevated to monumental scale? Some researchers suggest it may have served as a calendar, aligning with seasonal changes, solstices, or agricultural cycles. Others speculate that it acted as a vessel of knowledge, encoding tribal laws, mythic narratives, or esoteric wisdom within its carved faces and limbs. And yet, with no written explanation surviving, all interpretations are necessarily tentative, leaving us to wonder whether we have glimpsed even a fraction of its intended significance. Legends and local folklore further deepen its mystery. Tales speak of idols that watch over the land, protect waters, and communicate with the unseen. Could the Zbruch Idol have inspired such stories, its presence enduring long after the people who carved it disappeared? Some theories even suggest that the figure was venerated as a protective talisman for entire settlements, or that it marked sacred territories where rituals and offerings were made. The ambiguity allows the imagination to roam freely, to ponder the intersection of art, spirituality, and daily life in a society lost to history. The idol also challenges assumptions about early Slavic societies. Its scale, complexity, and symbolism indicate not only advanced craftsmanship, but also a structured worldview capable of abstract representation. Did its creators possess a sophisticated understanding of cosmology, human psychology, and social organization? If so, what other forms of knowledge, now vanished, might have accompanied this monumental work? Could carvings, rituals, or oral traditions associated with the idol have contained insights into law, astronomy, or medicine, now irretrievably lost? Speculative theories, while unprovable, invite further reflection. Some suggest that the Zbruch Idol may encode astronomical or seasonal cycles, acting as a pre-Christian Slavic calendar stone. Others argue it represents the continuity of life, death, and rebirth, a physical manifestation of ancient cosmology. Its segmented structure, with distinct tiers and faces, implies a layered understanding of existence, a vision of the universe far more intricate than a simple idol might suggest. Could it be that what we see as a mysterious statue is actually a map of knowledge, a symbolic compendium preserved in stone for those who knew how to read it? Today, the idol is preserved in museums, removed from its original riverbed and environment, yet its aura of mystery persists. Photographs, drawings, and studies attempt to capture its essence, but the tangible presence of the figure in its original landscape, the river's flow, the shifting light, the winds over the reeds, cannot be replicated. What did it mean to those who first placed it there? And what has been lost in translation, in removal, in the centuries of reinterpretation by scholars, adventurers, and collectors? The Zbruch Idol remains an invitation to wonder. Each carved face, each tiered segment, each worn surface hints at a story, a ritual, or a belief now largely forgotten. As we trace its contours with our eyes, we are reminded of the impermanence of human endeavor and the persistence of memory encoded in stone. What knowledge, what myths, what spiritual truths were once held in the hands and minds of those who carved it? And as we continue our exploration of ancient Russia's mysteries, the idol silently poses the question, what else lies hidden, waiting for discovery, in the rivers, forests, and fields of a land where history and legend intertwine? Along the winding course of the Kama River, where dense forests meet mist-laden waters and the sun barely penetrates through the thick canopy, traces of human settlement whisper from beneath the earth. These are the lost cities of the Kama, settlements that once thrived on the river's fertile banks, now obscured by time, overgrowth, and the shifting currents of history. Stand on the riverbank today, and you are met with silence. Reeds sway, water laps against the shore, and the occasional ripple betrays the presence of life. Yet beneath this serene surface lies a landscape once bustling with human endeavor, a tapestry of trade, culture, and ritual that has been partially swallowed by centuries of natural and human forces. Historical records suggest that the Kama region, as early as the first millennium AD, was a critical nexus for trade between the northern Rus principalities and communities along the Volga. Archaeologists have uncovered remnants of fortifications, pottery fragments, and tools that hint at organized settlements capable of sustaining sizable populations. But the precise nature of these cities, their governance, social structure, and daily life, remains tantalizingly elusive. How could such thriving centers vanish almost entirely, leaving only faint archaeological traces and whispered stories in the oral tradition? Environmental forces provide some answers, yet only partially. The Kama River, with its wide floodplains and periodic surges, could easily engulf settlements, eroding foundations and dispersing artifacts. Seasonal flooding, shifting river channels, and centuries of sediment accumulation may have buried streets, dwellings, and marketplaces beneath layers of silt. Yet, even accounting for natural processes, the disappearance of entire urban centers seems deliberate or sudden in certain accounts. Could these cities have been abandoned in haste due to conflict, famine, or disease? Or did the river itself conspire to erase them, slowly reclaiming land once claimed by human hands? Archaeological discoveries add both clarity and mystery. Stone foundations, remnants of wooden structures preserved in anaerobic soil, and scattered jewelry reveal sophisticated craftsmanship and trade networks extending far beyond the Kama. Items from the Byzantine Empire and Central Asia, as well as local innovations, suggest that these lost cities were not isolated villages, but hubs of commerce and cultural exchange. Yet many questions persist. What was the layout of these settlements? Were there temples, marketplaces, or civic centers now completely hidden beneath layers of mud and forest? And what stories, records, or artifacts have been lost forever, carried away by the river, or destroyed by the passage of time? The legends surrounding the lost cities deepen the enigma. Local folklore speaks of towns swallowed by the river, of bells tolling beneath the waves, and of treasures hidden where the water runs deepest. Could these tales be distorted memories of actual events, where floods or invasions forced entire communities to vanish from sight? Or are they symbolic narratives, meant to encode warnings about the precariousness of life along the river, where nature's rhythms dictate the fate of human settlements? The intersection of myth and history makes the Kama region a rich, albeit challenging, canvas for exploration. Some scholars propose that the Kama cities played a significant role in pre-Mongol trade networks, linking the forested north with the Volga, the Caspian, and beyond. Others suggest that they may have held religious or ceremonial significance, serving as centers where local rulers, shamans, or priests exercised influence over both people and landscape. The precise spiritual or political roles of these cities, however, remain speculative, obscured by the absence of written records and the relentless passage of time. Speculative theories abound, adding further layers to the mystery. Could some of these cities have been intentionally abandoned to protect sacred knowledge or to avoid capture by invading forces? Might advanced metallurgical techniques, astronomical knowledge, or ritual practices have been lost along with the populations that once inhabited these settlements? The fragmentary evidence, ceramic shards, tools, and faint foundations suggests a sophistication that challenges assumptions about early medieval northern societies. Each artifact becomes a keyhole into a vanished world, hinting at complexity, culture, and ingenuity that the historical record cannot fully capture. The geography itself seems to guard these mysteries. Thick forests, meandering waterways, and hidden marshes make exploration difficult, creating natural concealment for what remains. Could entire districts, ritual sites, or marketplaces still lie beneath the river's mud and the forest's root-laden soil? And if uncovered, would they reveal a more complete understanding of the Kama's role in shaping trade, culture, and politics in ancient Rus? The possibility lingers tantalizingly, urging continued exploration while respecting the delicate balance between preservation and discovery. Today, the lost cities of the Kama River are not just archaeological puzzles, they are invitations to imagination and inquiry. Each discovery, whether a fragment of pottery, a submerged stone foundation, or a story preserved in folklore, challenges us to reconstruct the lives of those who came before. As we trace the river's bends and watch the water reflect the sky, we are reminded that human presence is both enduring and fragile, capable of shaping landscapes and yet equally subject to erasure. And so, as the sun sets over the misty waters of the Kama, the question remains: what truths, stories, and knowledge have been carried away by the river, and what fragments might still lie hidden, waiting for the patient eyes of future explorers? How much of history rests just beneath the surface, whispering through reeds and currents, urging us to seek the lost cities and the civilizations that once flourished along these mysterious northern waters? Beyond the river valleys and rolling plains of northern Eurasia stretches a landscape both vast and enigmatic, the endless forests of Siberia. Here, where the trees stand in solemn rows and the underbrush whispers under the weight of the wind, one can feel a presence older than any written record. The taiga is immense, a living cathedral of pine, fir, and larch, its floor carpeted with moss, fallen needles, and the occasional hidden stream. In winter, snow muffles the forest's sounds, transforming it into a realm of hushed echoes. In summer, sunlight filters through dense branches, creating shifting patterns that dance across the forest floor. It is a place where nature dominates, yet humans have left their subtle, mysterious traces, blending into the endless green. Siberia's forests have long inspired awe and reverence. For centuries, nomadic tribes, shamans, and early settlers navigated these woods, leaving behind not just artifacts, but legends. Ancient petroglyphs, stone markers, and remnants of ritual sites suggest that these forests were more than mere wilderness. They were sacred spaces, corridors between the material and spiritual worlds. The indigenous peoples believed that spirits dwelled in the groves, that the trees themselves could whisper secrets to those who listened, and that the boundaries between the living and the unseen were thin and permeable. What knowledge might these forests have witnessed? And what wisdom did the earliest travelers glean from walking their shaded paths? Historical accounts hint at Siberia as a crossroads of migration, trade, and culture long before the Russian expansion eastward. Artifacts unearthed in remote clearings, tools, jewelry, and ceremonial objects reveal sophisticated craftsmanship and a deep understanding of the land. Some scholars argue that these forests sheltered communities that developed unique spiritual systems, observing the rhythms of the natural world and encoding them in myths, rituals, and oral traditions. Yet much remains hidden, preserved in permafrost or swallowed by centuries of dense growth. Could there be entire settlements, ceremonial complexes, or pathways that modern explorers have yet to uncover? The forests themselves seem to guard their secrets. Even with satellite imagery and aerial surveys, the sheer scale of Siberia makes discovery difficult. Fog rolls through valleys, rivers twist unpredictably, and snow can bury traces for decades. Stories passed down by locals speak of vanished villages, of lights flickering between the trunks at dusk, and of trails that seem to shift when no one is watching. Some suggest that these accounts may preserve echoes of real events, migrations interrupted by harsh winters, villages abandoned in sudden floods, or sacred sites intentionally concealed to protect them from outsiders. Yet the line between history and legend blurs, leaving room for wonder. Among the whispering trees, unusual phenomena have been reported for centuries. Hunters, travelers, and explorers recount sounds that cannot be explained. Rustlings with no discernible source, low hums that vibrate through the frozen ground, and shadows that seem to move independently of the sun. Could these be the echoes of long-forgotten rituals, residual energies from past generations, or simply the intricate acoustics of an ancient forest? Some researchers have documented anomalies in magnetic readings and soil composition in certain areas, though explanations range from natural geological formations to remnants of ritual practices. What is clear is that Siberia's forests are not silent witnesses. They are active participants in the unfolding story of the land. Archaeologists and historians also note the presence of ancient markers, carved stones, isolated standing logs, and small hillocks, sometimes arranged in circular or linear patterns. Could these be waypoints for travelers, sacred shrines, or indicators of astronomical knowledge? Comparisons with other northern cultures suggest that similar structures were often linked to celestial observations, fertility rites, or protective magic. The Siberian examples remain largely unexplored, yet they hint at a sophisticated understanding of both the landscape and the cosmos. Were these early inhabitants mapping the stars, tracking seasons, or communicating with unseen forces? Some theories venture even further. Folklorists have suggested that the forests themselves were considered alive, imbued with consciousness by those who dwelled within them. Shamans, with what modern observers call white-eyed sight, are said to have read signs in the wind, interpreted the sway of trees, and used their knowledge to guide tribes through harsh winters or dangerous terrain. Could these whispering groves have acted as both sanctuary and classroom, where humans learned survival, cosmology, and spirituality in equal measure? And if so, what insights have been lost to time, buried under centuries of soil and silence? The ecological richness of Siberia reinforces its role as a living archive. Rare flora and fauna, some found nowhere else, thrive in these forests, hinting at a stability and resilience that has allowed human and non-human life to coexist over millennia. Could the very longevity of the taiga have shaped local beliefs, fostering a worldview in which the natural and spiritual worlds are intertwined? And if the forest has preserved its secrets this long, what treasures, cultural, historical, or ecological, remain hidden, waiting for discovery? Walking through these whispering woods, one cannot help but sense both fragility and endurance. The forest has witnessed empires rise and fall, rivers carve new paths, and civilizations vanish almost without trace. Yet its own pulse continues, measured in wind, rainfall, and the quiet growth of ancient trees. As we move through the forest today, observing remnants of human presence alongside its timeless rhythms, we are reminded that the boundaries between the known and unknown, the past and present, are as fluid as the streams that thread through this green expanse. And so, as the shadows lengthen and the evening mist curls between the trunks, we are left to wonder what remains unspoken in the Siberian forests. What histories, rituals, or knowledge linger beneath the canopy, and how much has been preserved in whispers, waiting for someone who can truly listen? The answer, perhaps, lies not in conquest or excavation, but in careful attention and patient exploration, trusting the forest to reveal its secrets, one rustle, one shadow, one subtle whisper at a time. In the shadow of the rugged Caucasus Mountains near the city of Grozny, a flame has been said to burn for centuries, a fire that resists wind, rain, and snow, its origin wrapped in both legend and mystery. Locals speak of it with reverence, describing a light that flickers eternally on the windswept plains, casting a warm, almost otherworldly glow across the barren landscape. Even today, those who venture close feel the peculiar presence of energy, a heat that is both tangible and strangely intangible, a reminder that nature and myth often intertwine in places we cannot fully explain. Historical accounts suggest that the eternal fire may date back to antiquity, possibly tied to early settlement patterns along the oil-rich regions of the northern Caucasus. Ancient travelers recorded unusual flames rising from the ground, attributing them to the will of the gods or the presence of sacred spirits. Could these reports be the earliest documentation of natural gas seeps igniting spontaneously? Or might there have been ritual fires maintained by local communities as a symbol of continuity, protection, or spiritual significance? The line between fact and folklore is blurred, leaving only the persistent glow to speak for itself. Grozny, known today for its turbulent history, was built upon lands where early tribes thrived, trading along the mountain passes and rivers that cut through the rugged terrain. It is not hard to imagine these communities gazing upon the eternal flame, interpreting it as a divine omen, a warning, or a guide. Some scholars propose that the fire served as a natural landmark for travelers, a constant amid shifting seasons and dangerous landscapes. Yet the more one examines the phenomenon, the more questions arise. How did this fire persist long before modern infrastructure? And why has it remained in the collective memory of local peoples for generations? The science behind the flame is partially understood. The region sits atop deposits of hydrocarbons, natural gas, and oil, a combination that can ignite under the right conditions, producing flames that appear unending. Modern geologists confirm that such fires could burn continuously, fueled by underground reservoirs. But even with this explanation, the aura surrounding the flame is difficult to dismiss. Witnesses describe it as strangely conscious, almost responsive to human presence, flickering in ways that defy ordinary physics. Could it be that environmental conditions, mineral composition, and natural gas dynamics combine to create optical or thermal phenomena that appear, at times, deliberate or sentient? Or is this the landscape itself speaking, in a language humans are only beginning to perceive? Legends amplify the mystery. Local lore tells of warriors and shamans visiting the site to seek guidance, of entire communities rallying around its warmth during harsh winters, and of travelers who swore that the flame led them to safety when the mountains were shrouded in snow and fog. Some accounts describe whispers or echoes carried by the wind, as though the fire itself communicated with those who approached. Could these stories be symbolic, encoding knowledge about survival, geography, or spiritual practice? Or do they reflect a genuine phenomenon that early observers struggled to understand and thus immortalized through myth? Archaeological and historical records add further depth. Pottery shards, tools, and ritual objects discovered near the site suggest that the surrounding lands were inhabited for millennia. Tribes of the North Caucasus may have used the flame as a center for ceremony, trade, or governance. Could the eternal fire have been both a natural occurrence and a sacred focal point, guiding the rhythms of community life? And if so, what knowledge about energy, ritual, and human adaptation has been lost to time, buried beneath layers of soil and centuries of legend? Speculative theories venture even further. Some researchers suggest that the flame may have inspired myths of immortality and divine protection, embedding itself into cultural memory as an eternal witness to human endeavor. Others hint at connections to ancient energy practices, hypothesizing that knowledge of natural gas, seeps, and combustion could have been used in ways we cannot fully reconstruct today. Even fringe interpretations propose that the fire acted as a beacon or signal, visible for miles, linking distant settlements and creating a network of sacred or practical guidance across the region. Yet, despite modern investigation, the eternal fire of Grozny retains its aura of mystery. Satellite imagery, gas analysis, and chemical studies explain much of its physical behavior, but they cannot fully account for the experiences, stories, and symbolism attached to it. The flame continues to capture imaginations, inspiring travelers, historians, and spiritual seekers alike. It is both a natural marvel and a cultural artifact, an intersection of earth and myth that challenges our understanding of history, geology, and human perception. Walking near the flame today, one is struck by its persistence. The wind swirls, the surrounding landscape remains rugged and untamed, yet the fire endures, as if the land itself remembers what has been lost elsewhere. Its light casts long shadows across the plains, shadows that seem to whisper secrets of ancient peoples, vanished civilizations, and practices long forgotten. How much knowledge about survival, spiritual practice, or environmental observation was encoded in this phenomenon, passed from generation to generation in tales and ritual, waiting for those with patience and curiosity to perceive it. And so, as dusk settles over the Caucasus and the eternal fire flickers against the approaching night, we are left with questions as enduring as the flame itself. What truths lie hidden in the flames? What histories remain unspoken? And what insights about human and natural resilience might we uncover if we dare to watch, to listen, and to wonder? The fire burns, relentless and enigmatic, a silent guardian of time, inviting all who approach to ponder the mysteries that persist at the intersection of earth, myth, and human imagination. As dawn spills over the banks of the Neva River, the city of St. Petersburg emerges from the morning mist, its canals shimmering with reflections of centuries past. Amid the grandeur of palaces and bridges, one monument commands attention, both for its artistry and the story it carries through time: the Bronze Horseman. Rising majestically on its pedestal, the horse and rider seem almost to ride against the currents of history itself, a frozen vision of movement that continues to captivate observers. The sculpture's gleaming bronze glows softly in the early light, as if holding within it not only the memory of Peter the Great, but also whispers of dreams, ambitions, and enigmas that stretch far beyond what is seen. Commissioned in the 18th century by Catherine the Great to honor her predecessor, Peter the Great, the Bronze Horseman is celebrated as a masterpiece of European sculpture. Designed by the French artist Étienne Maurice Falconet, the monument portrays Peter atop a rearing steed, his gaze fixed forward, an emblem of progress and determination. Yet beneath its historical context, a deeper mystery lingers. Stories surrounding Peter's vision for St. Petersburg and the creation of the monument suggest a layer of symbolism that transcends the official narrative, a hidden dialogue between ruler, city, and fate. Was the horse merely a tribute to a great leader, or did it encode secret messages, allegories, or warnings for those who could read the language of stone and bronze? The pedestal itself, known as the Thunderstone, adds another layer of intrigue. Carved from a single massive granite boulder, it is said to be the largest stone ever moved by human hands. How such a monumental feat was achieved in the 18th century continues to inspire awe and speculation. Some historians suggest ingenious engineering and meticulous planning, while others hint at almost mystical undertones, that the stone was chosen not only for its size and shape, but for the energy it might carry from the earth itself, grounding the city and its ruler in both physical and symbolic permanence. Could Peter have envisioned this union of earth, metal, and ambition as a talisman for the destiny of his fledgling capital? Literature and folklore amplify the aura of the Bronze Horseman. Alexander Pushkin's 19th century poem immortalized the statue, imbuing it with supernatural qualities. In Pushkin's verse, the horse breaks free from its pedestal, galloping across the city with Peter's adversaries in its wake, a vivid image of power, consequence, and the limits of human ambition. Could such literary interpretations be purely metaphorical, or do they preserve echoes of older beliefs, of a time when monuments were not only artistic statements, but also conduits for energy, memory, and prophecy? The overlap between history, art, and legend leaves the observer questioning where one realm ends and another begins. Even the physical details of the statue invite closer scrutiny. The horse rears as if caught mid-leap, its muscular form conveying tension and imminent action. Peter's outstretched arm, pointing toward the Neva River, seems to command not only the water, but also the currents of history itself. Some scholars argue that Falconet's design intentionally blends classical equestrian symbolism with Baroque drama, while others suggest that the alignment of the statue, its shadow at dawn, and its proximity to key architectural axes may have been meant to encode cosmic or political significance. Did Peter and Catherine intend the monument as a mere celebration of power, or was it conceived as a marker in a larger, almost ritualistic vision of St. Petersburg's destiny? Beyond artistic speculation, there is a record of local beliefs surrounding the monument. Generations of residents have recounted dreams and visions connected to the bronze horseman, often describing feelings of awe, fear, or revelation when approaching the statue. Some tales claim that those who disrespect or disregard its presence may encounter misfortune, while others suggest that in the stillness of night, the figure seems almost alive, shifting imperceptibly as if aware of its audience. Could these perceptions be psychological responses to a powerful symbol, or might they reflect an ancient human intuition about energy, memory, and sacred space projected onto the bronze and stone? Archaeological and historical investigations offer partial explanations. The choice of the thunderstone, the methods of casting and mounting the bronze, and the strategic placement within the city all demonstrate technical mastery and careful planning. Yet, the monument's cultural resonance, its continued ability to inspire awe, and the layers of myth and legend surrounding it suggest that its meaning extends beyond engineering and aesthetics. Perhaps the bronze horseman occupies a liminal space between the tangible and the intangible, where human ambition, natural forces, and imagination converge. Speculative theories extend even further. Some researchers suggest that Peter's vision for St. Petersburg was informed by esoteric knowledge involving celestial alignments, numerology, or an understanding of urban energy flows now largely lost. Others propose that the statue itself serves as a focal point, a psychic or symbolic anchor that shapes the city's identity and collective consciousness over centuries. Even if these ideas cannot be proven, they underscore the enduring mystery of the bronze horseman, a monument that is simultaneously real and allegorical, physical and metaphysical, a testament to human achievement and the unknown forces that guide it. Standing before the bronze horseman today, one cannot help but feel the weight of centuries pressing gently against the skin, the river's chill in the air, and the sense that history and imagination are intertwined. The horse's gaze carries forward, unyielding, as if daring us to follow, to question, and to wonder. How much of Peter's dream was realized, and how much remains hidden within the bronze and stone? Are we witnessing a story fully told, or merely a fragment of a vision that spans time, space, and human consciousness? And so, as the morning sun glints off the horse's bronze coat and the Neva winds swirl at its base, the bronze horseman stands in silent vigil, an enduring enigma that invites reflection on ambition, destiny, and the mysteries embedded in art and history alike. How much remains unseen, waiting for those who will look beyond the surface to perceive the whispers of a ruler's dreams and perhaps their echoes in the city itself. High in the northern reaches of the Ural Mountains, where jagged peaks pierce the sky and winds sweep across the snow like a living tide, there lies a stretch of wilderness that has long been whispered about in hushed tones among locals. Known today as Dyatlov Pass, it carries an air of foreboding that seems almost timeless, as if the land itself preserves memories of events that defy simple explanation. Yet long before the tragic events of 1959 etched this pass into modern legend, stories of strange occurrences and unexplained vanishings in these remote mountains had already begun to circulate. These tales, now collectively referred to as the Dyatlov Pass precursor legends, hint at a history layered with mystery, danger, and perhaps forces beyond human understanding. The region's geography contributes to its eerie reputation. Narrow valleys funnel fierce winter gales, while steep, icy slopes make travel treacherous even for the most experienced mountaineers. Snowfields, stretching as far as the eye can see, can conceal both the ordinary and the inexplicable. Local folklore speaks of travelers who disappeared without a trace, of footprints vanishing into the wind, and of strange lights flickering on the ridges during the long polar nights. These early accounts were often dismissed by outsiders as superstition. Yet the persistence of such stories suggests that something about this landscape has always captured human imagination and apprehension. Historical records reveal that long before modern explorers attempted to map the area, indigenous peoples, primarily the Mansi and Komi, held the mountains in reverent fear. They spoke of spirits that roamed the high passes, guardians or perhaps warnings, their presence detectable only through subtle signs, an unseasonable gust of wind, an animal's sudden flight, or an inexplicable chill that settled over the campfire. Anthropologists have noted that these traditions often served a practical purpose, encoding knowledge about treacherous terrain and unpredictable weather in allegorical form. Yet when examined alongside modern accounts, one cannot help but wonder, were these tales purely symbolic, or do they hint at phenomena that have eluded scientific explanation for centuries? The precursor legends themselves vary in detail, but several recurring motifs stand out. One is the sudden and disorienting appearance of strange lights on the horizon, orange or bluish glows that hover or dance above the snowfields, disappearing as swiftly as they arrive. Witnesses often describe a sense of compulsion, an inexplicable urge to approach the lights, only to realize that doing so brings peril. Another motif involves sudden avalanches or landslides that seem to strike without warning, often leaving behind no clear evidence of what triggered them. And some accounts suggest encounters with figures or silhouettes that seem human yet behave unnaturally, moving silently across the ridges or vanishing into the mist. These elements, though anecdotal, have persisted for generations, suggesting that the Dyatlov Pass region has long inspired both fear and fascination. Even when stripped of legend, the geography itself offers clues to why these mountains inspire such tales. Sudden weather shifts, snowstorms that appear without warning, and hidden crevasses can claim lives in moments, leaving little trace of the victims. The combination of isolation, extreme climate, and rugged terrain naturally fosters stories that blur the line between cautionary tale and supernatural occurrence. But the consistency of reports across centuries, cultures, and languages raises compelling questions. How much of this is chance, and how much might point to a phenomenon that defies conventional understanding? Could there exist environmental, atmospheric, or even geomagnetic conditions that interact with human perception in ways we are only beginning to grasp? Folklore intertwines with history in intriguing ways. Early Russian settlers moving into the Urals noted the mountain's uncanny ability to confound travelers, leading to numerous unexplained disappearances. Journals from the 19th and early 20th centuries recount parties setting out into the highlands, only to be found days or weeks later, sometimes far from their intended routes, with their clothing and belongings in disarray. Local elders suggested that these travelers had been called by the mountains, a euphemism that hinted at forces beyond the visible, perhaps a warning, perhaps a trap, or perhaps something else entirely. Modern researchers have revisited these accounts, attempting to separate empirical evidence from embellishment. Some have proposed explanations ranging from katabatic winds and infrasound-induced panic to magnetic anomalies that could disorient even the most seasoned explorers. Others, drawing from historical accounts, speculate about cryptic energy fields, subtle environmental hazards, or as yet undocumented natural phenomena unique to the Urals. The persistence of anomalous reports, from the precursor legends through the infamous 1959 incident, suggests that the area may harbor secrets that resist conventional investigation. Even today, those who traverse the pass speak of an atmosphere unlike any other. The silence is profound, broken only by the whistle of wind or the groan of shifting ice. Tracks appear and vanish inexplicably, while snowdrifts form in patterns that seem deliberate, almost purposeful. Campers recount sudden changes in light and temperature, fleeting impressions of movement at the edge of vision, and an intangible sense of being watched. The Dyatlov Pass precursor legends serve as a bridge between these lived experiences and the formal records, a reminder that human perception often senses more than it can immediately rationalize. Standing at the edge of the high Ural ridges, one is left with a deep sense of both awe and caution. The mountains are beautiful, pristine, and terrifyingly indifferent. The legends suggest that for centuries the pass has been a place where human ambition meets the unknown, where courage, curiosity, and perhaps hubris are tested against forces that remain elusive. Did those who vanished before Dyatlov in 1959 succumb to natural hazards alone? Or were they encountering a phenomenon that has whispered through the peaks for generations? Could these precursor legends hold fragments of truth that modern science has yet to decipher? The Dyatlov Pass, silent and snow-covered, waits as it has for centuries, an enigmatic witness to human exploration and mystery. Its precursor legends challenge us to look deeper, to respect both the tangible dangers and the unseen forces that seem to inhabit this remote wilderness. What lies beyond the familiar snowfields and ridges? What stories, hidden from written record, continue to linger in the wind, waiting for those who dare to enter and wonder? Beyond the dense forests and rolling hills of ancient Rus, scattered across remote river valleys and secluded glades, there stand massive stones, weathered by centuries, yet commanding a presence that feels almost eternal. Known as the Perun Stones, these monolithic boulders are silent witnesses to a past layered in ritual, mythology, and perhaps forces that escape our full understanding. Their surfaces are etched with grooves, symbols, and faint markings, some resembling weapons, wheels, or archaic signs, while others resist interpretation entirely. Here, in these quiet corners of the landscape, one cannot help but feel that these stones were placed not merely as markers of land, but as conduits to something larger, an energy, a story, or a warning now nearly forgotten. Historical records suggest that the Perun stones were closely linked to the worship of Perun, the Slavic god of thunder, lightning, and war. Travelers and chroniclers of the medieval era spoke of rituals performed at these sites, offerings left in hollows of rock, ceremonial fires lit at dusk, and sacred oaths sworn beneath the open sky. Archaeologists have unearthed remnants of stone circles, earthen altars, and charred deposits surrounding some of these monoliths, confirming that they served as focal points for gatherings that were at once spiritual and social. Yet, despite these tangible traces, the stones themselves remain enigmatic. How were such massive boulders transported to these precise locations? Why were some left in isolation while others clustered in geometric patterns? And why do they continue to evoke awe, even when stripped of their ceremonial context? The intrigue deepens when examining the symbols carved into the stones. Some appear as crude, yet deliberate representations of celestial bodies or seasonal cycles, while others resemble abstract inscriptions that defy any known Slavic script. Linguists and historians have debated their meaning for decades, proposing everything from early calendrical systems to proto-writing meant to convey sacred knowledge. Some scholars suggest that the carvings may encode astronomical observations, tracking the movement of the sun, the phases of the moon, or even the shifting of stars across centuries. Others have ventured more speculative theories, imagining the stones as mystical markers aligned with ley lines or hidden networks of ancient energy. While these ideas remain unproven, the very persistence of such theories attests to the Perun Stones' power to spark wonder and uncertainty. Geography plays an essential role in the mystique of these monoliths. Many stand atop hills or on river terraces, commanding views of the surrounding landscape. From these vantage points, one can see forests stretching endlessly, rivers twisting like silver threads, and distant mountains etched against the horizon. The placement seems deliberate, as though each stone were chosen for its ability to connect earth and sky, human and divine, present and eternal. Could the builders have understood principles of landscape and energy that modern science only hints at today? Were these stones simply sacred markers, or did they serve a function now lost to memory? A way to commune with natural forces, record history, or map a cosmology? Local folklore adds layers of intrigue. Villagers recount tales passed down over generations, lightning striking near certain stones while leaving others untouched, sudden storms forming above particular monoliths, and inexplicable lights flickering across their surfaces at dusk or dawn. Stories speak of travelers who dared to sleep beside the stones, waking to visions, dreams, or sensations of being watched. Some tales hint at protective spirits, guardians of the sacred landscape, while others whisper of curses placed upon those who would defile or disrespect these ancient markers. While difficult to verify, these accounts underscore a consistent truth. The Perun Stones continue to command attention, eliciting both reverence and caution. Scientific investigations have attempted to bridge the gap between legend and reality. Geological studies reveal that many of the stones are composed of local granite or sandstone, yet some were transported over significant distances, a feat that would have required careful planning and communal effort. Carbon dating of surrounding artifacts places human activity at these sites as early as the first millennium BC, suggesting that the reverence for these stones spans millennia. Yet, despite these concrete findings, the stones themselves resist explanation. Why certain locations were chosen, what precise meaning the symbols held, and the full extent of the ceremonies conducted there remain elusive. Adding to the mystery, some Perun stones bear similarities to megalithic monuments in other parts of Europe and Asia. Could there have been cultural exchanges or shared spiritual traditions across vast distances? Were these stones merely coincidental in form and function, or do they hint at a broader, interconnected network of ancient ritual and knowledge? The questions are as heavy as the stones themselves, pressing upon those who study them with a sense of profound curiosity and humility. Visiting a Perun stone today is to step into a liminal space where history, myth, and landscape converge. The air is often crisp, carrying the scent of moss and pine, while the silence seems amplified by the magnitude of the stone itself. One is struck not only by its physical presence, but by the feeling that the stone remembers those who raised it, those who honored it, and perhaps something beyond human comprehension. In this way, the Perun Stones serve as portals to a past that is tangible yet elusive, to a culture that revered the unseen, and to questions that may never be fully answered. As shadows lengthen across the hills and rivers shimmer in the fading light, one is left with the sense that these monoliths hold secrets still waiting to be discovered. Did the ancients possess knowledge of the natural world or cosmic patterns that has since been lost? Were the stones purely symbolic, or did they serve a function now beyond our understanding? And most compelling of all, how much of the power and mystery of the Perun Stones lies not in the past, but in the questions they continue to inspire today? In the end, standing before a Perun stone, one cannot help but wonder. What truths remain hidden beneath the weathered surface? What knowledge, ritual, or force still resonates silently, waiting for a patient eye to notice? The Perun Stones, steadfast through centuries, continue to challenge our understanding, inviting us into a dialogue between human curiosity and the enduring mysteries of the world.